Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto has ghost powers. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. She looked over the records of the mothers that were coming in for their prenatal checkups to make sure that the children they were carrying would grow up healthy and strong. She thought to herself, little do they know that one of them has been selected as a test subject for the serum that Master Orochimaru has developed during his experiments with forbidden projects involving spirits and the dead. The female doctor had been amazed by the work that the banished Sannin had developed as results of his dreaded works with things that many though would be best left alone. It was even hinted that the great ninja had found a way to become immortal in form, allowing him to survive death in any number of different ways. That was what had drawn her to the most feared man in Konoha, the chance to survive death, as it had haunted her for years even while she was a young woman. The lives of ninjas tended to end rather quickly than death in bed at the end of a long life. The biochemical compound that was in the syringe that was disguised as a booster shot was in fact a mixture of ectoplasm, the blood of ghosts that had been collected and purified by her dark master. Added to those supernatural chemicals were bonding agents that would connected the ectoplasm to human DNA, creating a new Kekkei Genkai that was suspected to give the infected the abilities of a ghost. Making a powerful line of ninjas if the formula behind the planning was correct, the wielders of the Raichi Kekkei Genkai. Now to just bring in the mother and subject. She though as she spoke out loud, "Come in ma'am. I am ready for you no." A month or two later. The female doctor was on the run from the hunter ninjas, trying to save her own life while delivering the important information that she held in her mind. She had somehow slipped up and left some clues to the fact that she had been working for Orochimaru in her office that had been noticed by one of her aides that informed the Hokage on her. Fortunately for her, she had managed to hear about the fact that she was wanted for questioning just a few minutes before she had been hunted. But now she had to get to a predetermined meeting spot where one of Orochimaru's agents would be there to collect her for extraction. She would then inform the Snake Sannin about the test subject that had been used to test the newly created Kekkei Genkai, even though there had been not time to see if process had taken the baby that had been used to become the great ninja's next tool in seeking revenge against Konoha. She moved carefully in the woods, trying to avoid the ninjas that she was running from. She had learnt the basics of the world of ninjutsu before she had joined the world of medicine and before she had fallen under the spell of Orochimaru. But what she had not expected was the fact that some of the best trained Jonin would be after her once it had been learnt that she was working for the Snake Sannin. So she didn't expect the sudden attack that knocked her down and out. Several people wearing masks of different animals looked down on her body, as one of them stretched out and pulled her up on their shoulders. Later in the Hokage Tower, Sarutobi studied the information that his interrogation division had gathered for him from the trader of the village. The fact that one of his precious villagers had turned their backs on their home had always made him heartbroken, but the actions that they had taken while in the village was unforgivable. Turning on their fellow villagers to make them a human lab rat to test out a possible future bloodline, one that no one would know if it would be effective or even if it would hurt the one that it had been given to. Sarutobi, the third Hokage of the village of the Hidden Leaf, knew that he would have to keep an eye on this injured party so that everything would be at the ready when this child started to display any changes. This child, this victim. Sarutobi looked at the report from the interrogation department about what the traitor had been thinking during her escape attempt, noticing that the woman had made mistakes with the dates that the events had occurred. He thought, it was only a few months before the events of the attack of the Kyuubi that took the life of my successor and added more trauma to the body that she altered with her insane experiment. Why did fate decide that this boy, Naruto Uzumaki, would be given two great trials to live through? To be given a bloodline from one of the most hated men in Konoha and then become the container of the most feared demon in all of the world. The Sandaime Hokage was trying to think about what it was that they could do for the boy given the events that had befallen him. The Yondaime had wanted him to be seen as a hero, as being the one born on that day had made him the only one that could hold the Kyuubi. His undeveloped chakra coils created a prison that the beast could not escape. The fact that he seemed to have a ghostly material in his DNA might have stopped a normal person from trying to hold the monster in the boy's body, but the Yondaime had prepared for this eventuality, working in some extra elements on the seal that would use this element as an extra safeguard in sealing the giant fox's spirit. The people didn't see it this way, as they only saw the beast that had killed so many of their precious people instead of the boy that would save them all form the demon's power. The Sandaime had made sure that the secret of Naruto's possible new powers would be kept secret, as at the moment it could only cause things to get worse. So he had created the laws that would prevent anyone from speaking about the Kyuubi's ceiling and the experiment. The experiment is something that Orochimaru would be trying with all of his immoral desire for the secrets of immortality. To bind the blood of ghosts to this boy and make it his own is something only his mind could come up with. He was looking for a way to become immortal and learn all of the techniques that ninjas know, looking for a way to make himself the ultimate being. The traitor had also mentioned that the snake Sannin had even had a few breakthroughs with the dead and dying. But this brings up the man-made Kekkei Genkei, the one that lies dormant in the body of young Naruto. The Sandaime looked at the guesses that the traitor had made about the abilities that would result from the infusion of strange ghostly blood. The skills that would be gained would make this tempting if it was not for the possible costs that would occur with this. Invisibility and intangibility would make for powerful tools for a ninja to have, as well as the ability to float through the air. There is also the suggestion that it could allow for the possession of people like the techniques of the Shintenshin no Jutsu of the Yamanaka clan, but in a possible different method. But much of the powers that Naruto would develop would likely be based on his unique genetic structure, so could vary greatly to the reports that she had admitted in her session with the interrogation squad. There was also the note of weaknesses that could occur when battling against jutsu that involve large amounts of spiritual energy that could be used to counter the powers of the ghost-infused Naruto. The winner would depend on the strength of spiritual energy, Naruto or his foe. The Sandaime heard the cries of a baby, which could only mean one thing: Naruto needed him for something. The old man's thoughts turned to the boy's safety given his problems. Orochimaru knows that the woman has used the solution, but he doesn't know which child it was given to. He would not be expecting use to use the ghost child as the guardian of the Kyuubi, so that might actually grant him some protection even given the treatment of the people of the village. All I can do is try and find a place that would at least tend to his needs and keep my own personal eye on things so that his life is as bearable as possible. Naruto was currently trying to hide from Mizuki and keep the scroll of forbidden techniques that the blonde had been tricked into stealing as he tried to digest the information that he had just been given. The fact that the young ninja student was the Kyuubi, the creature that had nearly destroyed the village that he lived in and killed the Yondaime Hokage who led it. The fact that the teacher that he so admired had been one of the people to keep the facts away from him was also hurting the blue-eyed boy. Then he heard Iruka answer Mizuki's claim that Naruto was a demon who hungered for power and revenge. You're right, Mizuki, the Kyuubi would do that, but not Naruto. Naruto is a loyal ninja of the village hidden in the leaves that works hard to learn the skills that he will need to become the Hokage. He never gives up and has made me proud to know him, making him the complete opposite of both you and the Kyuubi. He is Naruto Uzumaki of the Hidden Leaf Village. Those words that Iruka spoke causes a feeling of joy and happiness that had been lacking in his life, as well as strange feeling of strength that seemed to fill him. You know, I was fully prepared to let you live just a little bit longer, the rogue ninja said as his annoyance increased, but you just changed my mind. Say goodbye, Iruka. The white-haired ninja prepared to release his giant shuriken in a death attack that was meant to end the life of his opponent. It was then that the weirdness was released. A circle of white light appeared instantly around Naruto as it rose and he could feel himself change, but that didn't stop himself from launching into the sky with a newfound power of flight. With the speed of a deadly gale, Naruto slammed into the enemy villager in a way that caused him to drop his shuriken. Speaking his mind, Naruto said, "If you touch my sensei, I will kill you." It was then that Naruto noticed that Mizuki was looking at him like he was confused. But the foe recovered within a minute before returning the threat of Naruto. The white-haired man told the young ninja, "I don't know why you have changed your look or how you learnt to fly, but I'm going to take you down." Mizuki then took out another huge shuriken to launch at Naruto, signaling that the battle had just begun. The fox boy just nodded in a way that he thought was cool and then used the hand sign for the shadow clone jutsu. However, he felt a sort of resistance when he was trying to do that technique that he couldn't feel when he had done it before. Instead of the hundreds of clones that he had been hoping for, he had just 10 clones appear to fight his now least favorite teacher. Naruto guessed that he would just have to make do with what he has, as he moved to give a major breakdown. It was with the first punch that Naruto noticed that something strange was going on, as a fist to the face caused Mizuki to sail back with more motion than Naruto's strength would have normally had done. But he continued to move as Mizuki seemed to have slowed down while they were fighting, as Naruto kept on giving punches and kicks to the traitors until the fox boy was sure that he would not be getting up again. The 10 clones looked over the unconscious form of his former teacher. Turning back to see how badly hurt his teacher with the scar was, he returned to him, not noticing that he was flying. The boy looked at his teacher, who had his eyes wide in shock. "Naruto, what happened to you?" Naruto was about to ask what it was that Iruka-sensei was saying, but then Naruto's reflection was shown. It had the fox boy's face, but the hair was a deep shade of violet that bordered on black, while his eyes had turned bright green and glowed with an inner light. He was also still wearing his orange jumpsuit, but with this new appearance it just didn't seem to fit. It was then that Naruto's eyes started to twitch for a second before he let out a scream. "Naruto, just relax. I'm sure that the Sandaime Hokage will know what has happened." Iruka called out above the screams of his student, needing to repeat it a few times before Naruto stopped stretching his voice. Naruto was still scared at what it was that had happened to him, after gaining the knowledge of his darkest secret. The dark-haired man then told the purple-haired boy, "Close your eyes. I want to give you something that might make you feel better." Naruto shut his eyes as he tried to figure out what it was his favorite teacher could do to make up for this weirdness. Naruto could feel something being slipped on his head before the scared elder nin told him to open his eyes. Naruto noticed that Iruka was not wearing his forehead protector, before feeling his own forehead to sense cloth and engraved metal. Iruka smiled as he said, "Congratulations, you pass. I saw you make it 10 clones, and not only clones but shadow clone. That takes a lot of hard work and you deserve to be recognized for it. No, we just have to turn Mizuki to the interrogation squad and return the scroll to the Hokage, as well as get some answers for this weird change that has happened to you." Later, inside the Hokage Tower, the Sandaime Hokage had dismissed most of the searchers for Naruto and the hidden scroll after he explained what had happened and what it was that people could expect when the fox boy and his teacher returned with the traitor that they had caught, making sure that Ibiki was ready to use his special skills to find out who had corrupted the former ninja of the leaf. Before him stood both Iruka and Naruto. The latter had returned to his blonde hair appearance rather than the purple hair that he had seen in his crystal ball. Both were asking questions about what it was that had happened to Naruto. The Sandaime started his tale. Months before Naruto was born and before the attack of the Kyuubi, a traitorous ninja who was working for one of the greatest foes of the leaf injected his mother with a serum that they believed would alter his DNA. This serum would create a possible Kekkei Genkei that they called Raichi, for the fact that it was made from a substance known as ectoplasm that is basically the blood and flesh of spirits. He was interrupted by a nervous blonde who was asking, "Those that mean I'm dead, that I'm a ghost." "I don't want to be dead, old man." The look of terror on his face was something that neither of the older men wanted to see on the boy that both loved like a son or brother. "Not exactly, Naruto. You are not a full ghost, but more of a combination of a living being and a spirit. A combination that gives you greater powers than that of a normal human, such as your heightened physical abilities and the ability to fly like in your battle with Mizuki." The fear on Naruto's face grew less extreme as a hint of interest came on that face in reaction to the Sandaime's words. The Hokage continued, "It is also likely that you will develop other powers based on ghost-like invisibility and intangibility, both of which could come in handy since you are a ninja. Ever since you were given the bloodline, we have been maintaining a limited study of spirits so that you can improve your powers and at the same time counter the power of the demon that give you these abilities." Naruto's foxy grin appeared spreading from ear to ear, and the young man nodded, likely covering the confusion he was feeling under that superhuman smile. "I will make sure that you know more about your abilities, Naruto. Remember this though, you are always a ninja and citizen of the leaf, and so a precious person to me. I will do all in my power to protect you from anything that could try to harm you." Honesty came from the Hokage's voice as made sure that Naruto understood that. Looking at the ghost boy, he saw true happiness cross the young ninja's face, which was duplicated on the face of his teacher. Kakashi Hitaki was standing in front of the Hokage after he had dismissed the other Jonin that had been summoned for teaching, which let him know that something important was about to happen. He wondered if it had to do with the fact that he was about to teach the Uchiha prodigy or the fact that he was going to teach the holder of the Kyuubi. Either one would be an interesting time in teaching. He was keeping his cool as he wanted to save his energy in case he had to move with a sudden burst. Kakashi, I know that two of the students that you will be testing this year could be the hardest pupils that you will have to face. However, something had just occurred that could also influence the teaching path you now face. The Raichi has been activated. The Hokage told him as the silver-haired ninja's single visible eye widened with shock and awe. Kakashi had known about the incident of the traitor who had placed the artificial Kekkei Genkei in the baby that would be used as the sacrifice to hold the nine-tailed fox. The fact that the Yondaime had used that bloodline to aid in the binding of the beast was a pure sign of his skills. So Orochimaru's experiment works. Has it affected Naruto in a negative way? Is he alright? The one-eyed man was wondering for the safety of the young genin, as the boy would soon be his charge and would also be a member of the team if they passed his little test. Naruto is fine and his personality is the same as before, even if he was a little shocked at the nature of the Kekkei Genkei. He managed to demonstrate the bloodline in defense of his sensei against the traitor Mizuki. It was also in that incident that he learnt the shadow clone jutsu, but there seems to be a limit in using that jutsu while Naruto was in his ghost form. The leader of the Leaf informed the Jonin of the well-being of the blonde boy. Kakashi had gained a little respect for the fox boy in that moment, as the will of fire had risen in one that had been given nothing. His mind realized, if we could translate that urge to protect his precious people to the other people of this village, he might reach his goal of becoming Hokage. A good Hokage at that. But if I am going to be able to teach him, I will have to know what kind of abilities I will be dealing with. Which is likely the reason for this meeting. So he asked his elder what it was that he could expect from Naruto with this bloodline. His physical abilities seemed to be enhanced in his ghost form, including strength, speed and agility. He has shown the ability to fly through the air with the same height and speed, perhaps even being able to go almost 100 miles per hour. He also seems to have the ability to turn himself invisible and has the ability to phase through solid matter. The information that we have gained from the traitor that injected Naruto with the bloodline states that his powers should continue to grow and increase. She stated that he should have the power to control ectoplasmic energies in various ways, including offensive and defensive abilities. He might also show the ability to use elemental attacks while in ghost form. What those two last abilities might mean, we are not quite sure of. It is also possible that he might be able to possess people much like the Yamanaka clan, but in a different way. I will give you a copy of the files we have on the Kekkei Genkei, as well as some of the research that we have done on ghosts and spirits. The Hokage explained, moving back into his role as the famed professor of the Leaf. The silver-haired man thought over the information that he had on the new ghost boy. He then spoke, many of these abilities would be useful in the ninja way, but those same advantages would make training harder than if it was just the power of the Kyuubi behind him. I take it that you have done research on spirits both for Naruto's sake and to counter the possible plans of Orochimaru. Knowing that snake, Naruto is not the only experiment that he has used to create this new bloodline. It is possible that he has his own minion with the Raichi or some form of it. We have been working on this problem with a crew of specially selected ninjas, using the knowledge that we have gathered from folklore. We have developed tools and jutsu that are useful in fighting spirits, including a foam that neutralizes a ghost powers for a while and a rope that is effective in holding a ghost without them phasing through it with their powers. They have not been heavily tested, but there have been some success with the ghosts that inhabit some of the more haunted places in our lands. We have been working on a gate that would allow us controlled access to the spirit world, as well as a way to hold ghosts until we can send them back to that world. They still need work though. I will let you have files on those tools as well as the working tools that could be useful in training. The leader then pushed forward a number of files for the Jonin, as well as a piece of paper that would lead him to the center where the studies of spirits were going on. While we are at it, I want to show you the way that Naruto is currently living. It might open your eyes to the mindset that Naruto has developed before gaining his Raichi. I expect great things from him, perhaps even fulfilling the dying wish of the Yondaime in becoming the hero that Naruto should have been. I know that he has had low grades that has been the result of trying to control the power of the Nine Tails while dealing with the hatred and shunning of the citizens of the village. He does show potential with his dedication to his training, as was shown with his learning the Shadow Clone's jutsu in one night. With the right teacher he could be a great ninja, so I hope that you remember that when you start to teach him. The Hokage then started to lead them away to visit the place where the ghost boy called home. Naruto was getting sick of waiting for his new sensei. It did however give him time to think about the mixed luck that he had since gaining his Raichi. The first thing was finding a rival with old man Hokage's grandson, Konohamaru. The kid had wanted to know the Waijutsu that he had used to beat the old man and all of the other perverts, and Naruto had been willing to teach him if only to get him out of his hair. But then I got to know him and he seems so much like me, except I'm not that annoying. Each one of us is trying to be recognized for being ourselves and not be judged on things that are out of our control. I'm glad that I set him straight about the fact that only by hard work can anyone become Hokage, that you can't become the best ninja in the village just by hoping and wishing that. If it was that simple I would be Hokage 10 times over. Plus it was a hell of a lot of fun to freak out that teacher of his with my new harem jutsu. There a part of me that wishes that he can become Hokage, after me of course. Naruto remembered his time with the boy and wonder if he would be meeting him again. But that had cut into his time in trying to figure out how to use his new bloodline. He did get some help with that from the notes that the Hokage had passed on to him through Iruka-sensei. It was basically guesses that they had taken from the traitor that had given him the bloodline, but it was some place to start with his training. He had been going over the basics of his bloodline with the ability to turn invisible, being able to phase through matter and his power to fly. He had discovered that he could turn other things invisible, but he was having trouble with a large area for a long period of time. The larger the area, the shorter the duration. Hard work was causing that to increase, but he still needed to work on that. The same thing happened with causing things to become intangible, with the exact same problems. The only other major problem was that even his non-ghost form had the power of the Raichi in an uncontrolled manner. I'm just lucky that I wear a tracksuit, or else I would keep losing my pants in front of everyone. Old man Hokage promised to get me a different outfit that would work better with my Kekkei Genkai, whatever that means. I just hope it makes me look like a super cool ninja the future Hokage is supposed to be. Naruto wished that he could look like he wanted to be. Then his thoughts turned to the cloning problems he had. With the shadow clone jutsu I can create hundreds of clones at once, but when I am in ghost form I can only create a piece of that. I keep feeling resistance against creating clones, like I'm doing something wrong. What the heck is the problem with that thing? Still, maybe my sensei can help me with this damn glitch. It does seem to help with my training to use the clones of both my human and ghost forms, but I have no idea why that is. But it does help to learn how to fight by have many different me's try and beat the crap out of me. It does help with my flying speed and my combat skills, but my ability to avoid attacks using my phasing ability. It should be more than enough to begin being the best ninja in the village. Naruto thought with a smile, before frowning again as he thought about the announcement that Iruka-sensei had given about the teams. Then there are my teammates. I couldn't believe my luck when I got the same team as Sakura-chan. It would have been a dream come true to work with her if it wasn't for the other guy. I still couldn't believe my luck when I got stuck with Sasuke. I can't stand that guy. He gets everything handed to him, while I have to work with everything I got. Still, I got my bloodline before he got his. Naruto was proud of his bloodline, especially after Iruka-sensei had given him a brush-up of the bloodlines of the village, which include the Dujutsu duo of the Uchihas and the Hyugas, the Sharingan and the Byakugan. Naruto still felt that his was much cooler, and could wait to be able to pull out his newest trump card against an enemy or even in a fight with Sasuke where he could kick the arrogant bastard's butt. I can't take it anymore, was the thought that echoed in his mind as he moved up from his seat and went to the blackboard to pick up one of the chalk erasers. Moving to the only door to the room, he opened it just in the right way to hold the eraser so that when the door was opened further it would fall on the person that was passing through the doorway. He looked over at his teammates and saw that Sasuke was brooding as always, while Sakura was looking like she was getting angry at him again. "Dobi," was the soft reply from the last of the Uchihas, as he paid little attention to his male team member. Sakura was louder than that when she answered, "Naruto, you shouldn't do that. Our sensei is a jonin and not going to fall for that kind of childish prank." Naruto just gave her a foxy grin as he moved to take his seat once again. He really didn't care if it was childish or not, just as long as it made the sensei that they were getting look a little foolish. It would certainly make him feel better at wasting all of this time he could be using to learn about his new powers, rather than just sit here and wait. It was just a few moments later that they heard someone touching the doorknob, opening the doorway wide open so that the eraser fell on top of him, covering the gray-haired man in a soft layer of chalk dust. He turned to look at the different genin as Naruto was laughing his ass off, Sakura holding back the laughter and Sasuke held a sly smile on his face. Turning to look at with his one eye, he said, "My first impression of the three of you is that I hate you all. Now if the three of you would just follow me to the top of the roof, the first meeting of Team 7 will take place." On the roof, the team of three had just arrived at the roof as Kakashi tried to think about the collection of the three young people that had followed him up. He was not sure that these three would figure out the first and greatest test that he would show them, that of the importance of teamwork within the world of ninjas. His next move is to have them reveal more of their mindset, perhaps getting a surprise from his first impression of these young ninjas. With careful words he asked, "So why don't you introduce yourselves, one at a time?" Sakura looked a little confused as she asked him, "Introduce ourselves? What do you mean by that, sensei?" Kakashi just sighed within himself as he explained it to his charges: things you like, thing you hate, dreams for the future, hobbies. This time it was Naruto who answered him with, "Why don't you go first, sensei? I mean, before we talk, why don't you tell us about you so that we know how it's done?" "Me? I'm Kakashi Hatake. Things I like and things I hate. I don't feel like telling you that. My dreams for the future. Never really thought about it. As for my hobbies, I have a lot of hobbies." The teacher could not help but smile behind the face mask that he wore. He had showed them how it was done, while not revealing anything about himself at the same time. The looks on two of his students told him that he had frustrated them. He continued, "Why don't you go first, Pinky? I'm Sakura Haruno. I like, well, the person I like." She started as she looked at Sasuke in a way that screamed schoolyard crush. She continued, "My hobbies are, well, my dream is to." She continued to look at Sasuke, even as he turned away from her without noticing her. Kakashi was not liking the fact that Sakura was more interested in living the romance novels about ninjas rather than being one. It didn't help when he asked her what it was that she hated that she answered the name of her other teammate. Kakashi mused, "This is not going to help any with the teamwork test. I might be sending these three back to the academy, if I don't convince them to quit instead." The masked man motioned to Naruto to speak next. "Believe it, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I like instant ramen in a cup, and I really like the ramen Iruka-sensei got me at the Ichiraki noodle shop. But I hate the 3 minutes you have to wait after you pour the water in the ramen cup. My hobby is eating different kinds of ramen and comparing them. But I am also interested in training and learning more about myself. And my future dream is to be the greatest Hokage. Then the whole village will stop disrespecting me and start treating me like I'm somebody important." Naruto said with a bright foxy smile on his face as he spoke. Kakashi wondered if it was the Raichi that was the reason for the learning more about himself. Kakashi motioned to finish up the introductions with Sasuke. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I hate a lot of things, and I don't particularly like anything. What I have is not a dream, because I will make it a reality. I'm going to restore my clan, and destroy a certain someone," spoke the last of the Uchihas, which placed looks of terror on Naruto's. Sakura continued to look in a dream-like trance at Sasuke. "Tomorrow we are going to have a little test to see if you should become genin." Kakashi started before he was interrupted by Naruto. "But aren't we already genin? I didn't work my ass off to pass that test," Naruto said as he looked crossed at being told his work was for nothing. "That was just a test to see if you were ready for this next test, one of pure survival in your life as a ninja. Out of the 27 academy students that pass the final exam, only 9 of those students become genin. The other 18 are weeded out and sent back to the academy for training." Each one of the students took on a look of determination that varied from the high intensity of Naruto to the light touch of Sasuke. Which would help make the coming test more difficult, but would make them that much stronger when they passed. Kakashi gave them further advice that would make the test more difficult. "I suggest that you get in some hard training and some good equipment. Also, I wouldn't eat breakfast since this test has the tendency to make one throw up." The first elements of the test were set up. He had a few other elements that he had to set up for the next day's little exam. In his heart, he hoped that these students would see past the deceptions that he would place before them. To prove that they would be worth of taking part of the will of fire, the very strength of their village that had led to their peace. The very lessons that took him so long to learn at the cost of the life of a friend he had neglected. So far, not Team had been able to see past the lies he had told them to see the one truth that he would give them. But he continued to hope, or else he lose everything he believed in and that he would not allow. He disappeared from the students as he thought about the unique problems that the Ghost Boy would be giving him. He had limited ghost line as the careful addition of chakra as well as warding seals that were used in its construction was very expensive. He would have to use it just right if he wanted to trap the Ghost Boy, since anything else would just pass through him with the power of the Raichi. Well, I at least know about most of the tricks that he could show me during the fight tomorrow. Of course, since this is a new bloodline, anything could possibly appear from Naruto. It should make the fight more interesting if he decides to use it, since I will be the first person other than Mizuki to see this new bloodline in battle. I might even have to pull out my secret weapon. The man named after a scarecrow thought to himself as he prepared to eat a good dinner and a good breakfast. He would need it. As soon as he could, Naruto ducked into an alley and used his power to shift into his violet-headed form, before turning invisible and flying off to one of the training sites that he used where people wouldn't be watching him. Taking his visible form again, the Ghost Boy took off his tracksuit so that he was dressed in his black t-shirt and a pair of boxers so that he would not be linked back to the Fox Boy everyone looked through. Then he spoke, Shadow Clone Jutsu, to split in about 5 clones so that he could perfect his use of his ghost form. Then he began to fight against those clones, dodging their kicks and punches using his ability to phase through solid matter. If I can get this right, I'll have another option when I have to dodge. I can just let their attack to go through me, making their fighting styles useless against me. It was after 2 of the clones had vanished due to suffering too much damage, that the other 3 took out their kunai and threw them at him. Watching those throwing knives carefully, he used his instincts to allow those blades to pass through him before he moved to flip in the air as he flew. Using that flip, he then grabbed the same kunai that had just flowed through his flesh. He turned those weapons against their users, causing 2 of the trio to pop out of existence. But the third one was clever enough to use its own phasing power to avoid being hit. Deciding to get back to being outnumbered, Naruto summoned 4 more clones to do battle with him. The original clone then nodded to the new quartet to come over to him so that he could make a plan, which the 4 other clone follow and move so that they could listen to him. The glowing green-eyed boy also took that time to prepare for the battle that would be coming up, trying to think of a way to get the clones to suffer enough harm to cause them to go pop. Shortly, the 5 clones moved into a circle formation around the real violet-haired boy for an all-out attack. They moved as one as they attacked him on 5 sides, causing him to react to the attacks of the 5. Dodging one punch only to have to phase through a kick while twisting out of the way of another kick, he was learning how to use his powers when under a complete attack. He tried to give as good as he got, but it was hard to grasp something that could become intangible. It was after the pop of the first clone that gave Naruto his answer, to try to phase at the same time as he grasped a clone that was phasing itself. Doing that had given him an easier time in causing his attacks to gain traction on his doppelgangers. Taking care of 3 more of his duplicates, he hit a surprise as the 5th clone used that same trick against him to throw him into the bushes that ringed the training ground. For a second, the Ghost Boy was distracted. Then he was really confused as he saw all around him at once, seeing beside him as well as behind him. Looking down at himself, he noticed that his hands looked different and he seemed to be dressed differently but in a familiar look. Moving out of the bushes, he turned to face his doppelganger. The clone said one word, Hinata? Quote, it was then and there that Naruto figured out what it was that was happening to him. I must have somehow taken over Hinata's body, which means that I'm in her body. Which is way I can see all around me. She has that Byakugan thing that Iruka told me about when he told me about Kekkei Genkei. The first move that he did was try to dismiss the clone that he had created, which seemed to work even as he was in someone else's body. Then he wondered what would happen when he left the body that he was possessing. Phasing out invisibly, he watched as Hinata slowly came out of what looked like a dizzy spell. Hinata, I thought I heard you. I just had to go for a leak before I get ready to start some training in before a big test tomorrow. What brings you here? He asked her, as he was curious about what it was that had brought her to this private location. He had tried to pick out a place that he could practice his ghostly powers without being spotted, but that was something that he would have to put on hold for now since he had an observer. Hinata blushed for a minute before she spoke again. She looked like she was nervous to be here for some reason that couldn't tell. Naruto remembered thinking that the young heir looked weird, but now after seeing her bloodline as well as having his own he saw that she was cool. Then he got an idea to combine some more training, while helping Hinata with her job. I can help, he said as he focused on the sign that would activate the shadow clone jutsu. Soon over 100 Narutos appeared in the training ground, and the blonde boy continued, I can use my clones to help you look for the herbs that you need for your salve. The blonde boy and his duplicates all took on foxy grins as they were glad that they were helping a friend while getting stronger at the same time. Naruto could swear that his white-eyed friend seemed to fill with a color of red that he had never seen on a human for a couple of seconds before it starts to fade. This caused him to ask her, are you feeling alright? You look like you going to be sick. Are you getting sick, Hinata? She just shook her head side to side as she turned her head down. No, I was just glad that you wanted to help me. Hinata said as she looked up at Naruto with her face a slight pink and a soft smile. Smiling back, the fox boy moved his clones in on the quiet girl so that she could tell him what her herbs looked like so they could look for it together. The next day, Naruto was remembering the aid that he had given Hinata just yesterday, which allowed him to practice his shadow clone jutsu while improving his searching skills at the same time. It hadn't taken long before one of the clones had come up with the herbs that Hinata was looking for, and the two of them reached the spot where the wild plant grew. Naruto took that as a victory of his new knowledge of ninjutsu before he dismissed his other clones. I don't know why it was that Hinata wanted to leave so quickly. It was nice to have someone with me that didn't give me the look that everyone else does. The fox boy shivered at the knowledge of the look that he had been given, the one that seemed to go through him like he was nothing. Nothing, like he shouldn't exist. Nothing, like he didn't deserve to exist. The loneliness of nothing that had caused him to seek out any attention, even if it was just the anger and annoyance of pulling a prank. But now he had a Kekkei Genkei, he was going to be a ninja and finally get to be a somebody. Or at least he would be once his sensei showed up after all of this time waiting. He also remembered getting the special outfit that the Hokage had created for him, an outfit if black that was highlighted by orange collar around the neck, a thin orange belt and orange boots. There was still much of his favorite color, but at the same time it wasn't screaming out kill me like his old tracksuit. The Hokage had told him that it wouldn't be prone to embarrassing phasing as any other outfit, so that it was a bonus. When he had arrived with Top Meet his team, the two of them seemed to like the change. With Sakura saying that he finally looked like a ninja, a strange ninja but a ninja. Sasuke just mumbled that at least Naruto would be less likely to get himself killed. The fox boy took this as a compliment. Finally Kakashi appeared before his students, looking like he didn't have a care in the world. That caused a surge of anger to flow up through the fox boy, that was duplicated in his teammate as they spoke in the same voice. You're late. The one-eyed man just smiled in a sly way before he spoke to them. Sorry, I was just on my way when I ran into a black cat that was crossing my path. So I had to take another way to the training area, but the cat seemed to be following me. He explained, giving an excuses that was so unbelievable that no one could be expected to take it seriously. Liar, Sakura accused as she showed that she didn't buy a word of it. Naruto could only agree as he waited for his sensei to move on to the test that would prove that they could be genin. Naruto turned and looked at Sasuke, who looked annoyed but uncaring, unlike their female teammate. The test is one of combat survival. You are to come after me with everything you have, in order to get one of two bells. The student who can take a bell, passes. Kakashi held up a couple of little silver bells that jingled for a moment. The Jonin continued, you will have to get these bells within the next couple of hours before noon. At noon, those who do not get a bell will be tied to a post and have to watch as those who pass as well as myself eat all of the lunches in front of them. Naruto could not help but feel like an idiot as he realized the reason that his sensei told him not to eat, cursing that he would find a way to prank his new sensei back once he had passed the test. But sensei, there is only 2 bells. There are 3 of us, so what does that mean? Sakura asked, causing the fox boy to notice that fact as well. He wondered if this was another trick of the Jonin, one that he would have to overcome to become a true genin. Well, that is simple. Only 2/3 of the students pass this test, so that means that at least one of you will be sent back to the academy for retraining. Of course, it is possible that only one will pass or that all 3 of you will fail. So you are going to have to come at me with everything that you got, which includes shurikens or any other weapons that you have. You will have to come after me with pure killing intent, or you will fail to pass. You can't be much of a threat if you fell for my eraser trap. This should be a piece of cake," Naruto said while giving a little laugh at his ability to make his so-called sensei look foolish. But when the blonde opened his eyes, he saw his sensei shaking his head before speaking. Class clowns often are the weakest links and not really a threat to anyone who knows better. It looks like we might have already found the team member that is going back to the academy already, spoke the scarecrow-like man, before he reacted to the attack of the blue-eyed blonde. Knocking the punch aside, he smiled for a moment before he continued, "I guess that the test has started." Within seconds, Sasuke and Sakura had disappeared into the shrubbery. That left Naruto and Kakashi all alone with each other, facing each other with a deadly stare. Deciding that if his sensei wanted his full power, he would give it to him. Yelling out a single word, "Raichi." Naruto was surrounded by a ring of white energy. His hair turned a new dark violet colored and his eyes glowed with their green light, as he rose up in the air to use that as an advantage. He moved into a fighting stance, while at the same time holding a secret back that could help them win this battle. Naruto's new overshadow jutsu, the one that had allowed him to take over Hinata's body and make it his own. But first, I'm going to kick his butt before I make him give me the bells. Believe it, Naruto thought to himself as he moved in to attack the sensei that was the only thing holding him back from being a true ninja and going back as a failure again. Something that he would not be doing again after all of the work and stress that he had been through. He had to win. Kakashi spoke as he stood looking at the transformed ghost boy. "First lesson is taijutsu, however it also looks like we will be having a lesson on Kekkei Genkai." Naruto looked a little surprised at the mention of his bloodline limit, but he continued to teach the students that he had. A Kekkei Genkai or bloodline limit is a genetic ability that is linked to a family that allows them to perform acts that would take much more chakra to use a jutsu or to use moves that could not be duplicated by jutsu. The particular bloodline limit that Naruto is using is called the Raichi. Naruto's eyes opened wide as Kakashi gave him a wink as the teacher spoke again. "To explain it to your teammates, it is a rediscovered bloodline that has the power to turn a person into a living ghost with the powers of a spirit. Which includes abilities like being invisible as well as being able to pass through solid matter, just to name two of its powers." While the Jonin was doing this, he was placing on his hands a set of black gloves that he had gotten from the ghost hunter team that the Hokage had created. It was something that they had just invented, and tested just a couple of times before they gave it to him for a good test in a combat situation. The ghost boy seemed to be frozen for a second before he attacked with his fists and feet at the Jonin, which is dodge with every move before the young ninja could make a hit. Slipping behind Naruto, the silver-haired one forced chakra into the gloves as he made the hand sign of the tiger for an attack. He heard a cry of, "Naruto, get out of there. He's going to kill you," which caused him some joy as there was at least one teammate that was willing to help a fellow ninja even if in a small way. "They think that I am doing some kind of killer fire jutsu since most of those involve the tiger sign in some way. They didn't notice that I was giving a lesson in taijutsu, so that don't know my true move," thought the one-eyed ninja as he spoke out loud. Too late. Now for the Leaf Village's most secret and unsacred jutsu. 1,000 years of death. Then he shoved his fingers up the butt of his violet-haired charge, which caused him to scream out in surprise, shock and pain. After jumping up in the air before leveling out in flight, the green-eyed one turned and looked at his teacher with anger in those same orbs. He said, "How the heck did you touch me? Your hand should have passed straight through my body. There is no way that you should have been able to touch me without ghost powers." Quote, normally, that would be true. It turns out that the Hokage has been working to fight against enemy ghost, which includes equipment like these ghost grabber gloves. When the right amount of chakra is channeled into the gloves that can hold on to beings and items that can pass through solid matter. So that allows me to fight you without having to worry about passing straight through you. Kakashi hoped that Naruto would not notice that the gloves wasted chakra in order to work, so that he would have to limit his use of the device, making this fight both easier and harder than expected. Minutes earlier, in the brush nearby, Sasuke could not believe that the Dobi had his own bloodline limit, just like the one that the Uchiha had. He added, "Worse, he seems to have gotten it before I could even activate my Sharingan." It gives him an advantage that I could copy with my dojutsu since it's blood-based, not jutsu-based. I have never heard of this Raichi before, but if it is a rediscovered limit that might not be unexpected. That's both a good thing and bad thing. Good that Naruto doesn't know how to use its full power against me, but bad that I don't know what kind of power he's hiding. Sasuke could hold back a shiver in his wonder of the idea that the Raichi might be more powerful than the Sharingan, which would have given him the power to kill his older brother. He saw that his Cyclops-like sensei was about to attack with a tiger sign, a signature of a fire jutsu. Sasuke could only wonder if the elemental jutsu could affect something that was supposed to be like a ghost. Then he witnessed the true attack their teacher used against their violet-haired team member, using the special gloves that allowed the Jonin to attack the young ninja. One word crossed the mind of the Avenger: idiots. The moody boy could not believe that he was being taught by a ninja that would use such a silly move, or that he was competing against a ninja with a powerful bloodline that would fall for that kind of move. Sasuke could only think of the ease that he would have with getting that bell so that he could get one step closer to gaining his vengeance. If he was the only one to pass, all the better. For now, I'll let the two of them fight it out. Hopefully, Naruto will tire out our sensei enough for me to be able to overtake him without any effort. Sasuke thought as he planned his next move. We turn to a different point of view of the same events. Sakura could not believe that Naruto, of all people, had access to a Kekkei Genkai. Especially one that would give him the powers of a ghost, powers that would make him a dangerous ninja if he was properly trained. In her mind, Sakura thought, this almost makes Naruto seem cool, especially given the new outfit that he's wearing that makes him look less like a reject. Then she saw that Kakashi-sensei was about to use a fire attack from the tiger sign that he was using, so she called out to Naruto to warn him. But it was too late as the Jonin attacked with what amounted to a butt poke, which caused Sakura to grimace at the embarrassing attack. Though, she couldn't help but be jealous as she saw Naruto show off his ability to fly. Her thoughts turned on that point. I can't believe that his bloodline allows him to fly, that is so cool. She continued to wait for her move to grab the bells for Sasuke and herself. Part of herself felt bad for having to send Naruto back to the academy, but this was a mission of love and she would complete this with her power of romance. Naruto was not happy with the fact that he had just had his rear end violated by his teacher, especially with some kind of device that seemed to counteract the new abilities that he had just gained from him being unlucky enough to be chosen as a test subject for a traitor. He needed to prove to everyone that he was something special even with the drawbacks that he had been made to suffer, which was why he was saving his latest ability for the attack. The ghost boy thought to himself, I just have to get a couple of friends to help me out and hold those bells while I make Kakashi-sensei hand them over to my clones. The violet-haired boy then used his hand sign to summon the 10 clones that he could make while in his spirit form, which formed a circle around the teacher. The 10 clones attacked the Jonin as the silver-haired one tried to avoid their attacks while countering the force with those ghost grabbers that he used to embarrass the foxboy, while the original Naruto used his power of invisibility to fade from sight to prepare to use his overshadowing jutsu on his instructor. The distraction of the combat had kept anyone from seeing that where they had been 11 of him, there was now only 10. 10 clones that were slowly being dropped in number as one-eyed man hit the duplicates with the special gloves. With only 2 Narutos left, the original made his move and phased into the body of the Jonin that he had just been fighting. Successful overshadowing jutsu, guys. The body of the silver-haired male said in the youthful voice of Naruto as the single eye he had opened turned a glowing green color. Now I just have to give you guys the bells and we pass the test. From the bushes, shocked eyes looked in disbelief as they saw their sensei speaking like Naruto and about to pass the bells over to his clones. But as the hand of the older man was about to touch the bells, they froze. The single eye returned to their original color as he shouted out, "Clever Naruto, using something of power that I don't know about. But I am not your puppet." Naruto could feel a force pushing against him as he tried to force his teacher to do his bidding. Naruto was guessed that his teacher was finding a way to fight against his control of his body, making it a battle of wills against the 2 ninjas of different levels. Naruto forced more of his will as he tried to push down the rising will of his instructor. I beat you fair and square, and now I deserve the bells. You can't stop me since I'm inside your body and in complete control. Now gimme those bells. Naruto then tried to get the bells with the other hand, only to have that hand blocked by the hand that was under the control of the body's owner. As the battle of wills continued, everyone out of the body looked confused as it seemed that Kakashi was trying to fight against himself. The only ones that had any clue what was happening was the clones, and they were not sure what it was that they should be doing as they didn't know how to help the original. Meanwhile in the body, Kakashi was surprised at the idea that Naruto was controlling his body, but was made aware of it with his knowledge of the Yamanaka technique of the mind transfer just you that was their family's claim to fame. He had been trained in what to do when his mind was taken over by an alien force, with S-level training given during his time with the Anbu Black Ops given by Inoichi himself. So he was in a better position than most to fight against the control that Naruto had over his body, where a civilian or weaker ninja would have fallen under the boy's complete control. Always the teacher, the Jonin's thoughts turned to his student. If he passes this test, I should really see if Naruto could train with the Yamanaka family. Their jutsu and this overshadowing power of his are very similar. With training they could help increase the skills of each other with their abilities. Of course, that is after I kick the little idiot out of my body and make him pay for turning me into a meat puppet. The gray-haired male slammed against the wall that Naruto had shaped around him that prevented him from keeping control over his own flesh and blood. Centering his will into a single focused blow, he took his time to align that blow against the small cracks that had been made against that wall of imprisonment. Then with a final strike it blasted through that wall and hit the spiritual image of Naruto and forced him out of the mindscape that they had been in, letting to return to the normal form that it usually had. Being able to see out of his body again, he saw Naruto shoot out of his body and crash into a tree across from him. The Jonin could not help but shiver at the idea that he was made to lose the test with a single technique. I had better be ready to expect the unexpected when battling that one. He thought as he disappeared in the shadows that nurtured a ninja like a mother. Then with the sudden strike of a cobra, he launched 2 kunai at the clones causing them to pop into non-existence. He then waited for Naruto's next move, which was to search the spot that Kakashi had been in. A spot that held a rather obvious trap that he had left to test the young ninja's ability to see underneath the underneath. Which the ghost boy instantly failed, being yanked up by the special ghost rope that would hold him. It was also covered with a fine coating of ghost foam that should weaken him as well. Naruto, you have to learn that a ninja must see past all deceptions. A ninja must see underneath the underneath. He told his student as he picked up the bell that he had left there as bait for his young friend. I get it, I get it. See underneath the underneath. Naruto yelled out as he tried to struggle out of the rope, which he reacted to by mumbling, why can't I phase through this rope? You don't get it. You think you get it, which you don't, and that is something that is completely different from actually getting it. Get it? He told the ghost boy, hoping that he was listening to him even while struggling with the trap. The Kakashi sensed shurikens and kunai knives coming at him and he made his move. Kakashi used his substitution jutsu to replace himself with a log that ended up looking more like a pincushion. The one-eyed man had to admit that the Uchiha had skills in noticing a weak spot. In his thought he told himself, at least I know what it is that I can expect with Sasuke and Sakura, even when they take me by surprise they're normal ninjas. Naruto, on the other hand, has an ability to become completely unpredictable. Including his ability to take over a body like a Yamanaka, without any of the drawbacks that is normally associated with their jutsu. I was left feeling dizzy and confused, and would have looked it if I hadn't had the special training that I have had. The gray-haired ninja knew that even with the Sharingan, he wouldn't have had an advantage against Naruto's ghost powers. It was purely a case of equipment and training to get him out of the way, with that special anti-ghost rope with the extra strength weave. He just hoped that his students could have used all of their abilities to come at him, but they would have had to figure out the answer to the training. Fighting Sasuke alone without help from Naruto or Sakura, just showed him that they didn't realize the truth behind the test yet. The two ninjas do battle with each other with kicks and punches that were expected of the combat style of taijutsu, each fighting at a level that was higher than that of a normal genin. Kakashi could only think to the training tactics of the Lost Clan. It's likely that Sasuke was trained hard so that he could become one of the best ninja in all of the village. That's why his fighting style is more refined than the raw style that Naruto uses. It looks like I might have to put a little distance between the two of us. The Scarecrow Man leapt for the woods as he secretly made the hand signs that would create a clone to keep the attention of the Uchiha for a time, while he made sure that Sakura wasn't missing her own lesson in the ninja arts. He managed to track down her in a secluded part of the woods, where she couldn't quite see him but where she could hear him. Lesson 2, Genjutsu, he said as he did the signs for the demonic illusion. Hull viewing jutsu, one of the most basic low-ranked jutsu for causing the subject to see a living nightmare. Having been told about what it was that she loved most, it was simple to show an image of Sasuke suffering from some of the most deadly and gruesome injuries that anyone could believe. What the one-eyed man couldn't believe was the fact that the young girl fainted from the shock of the image, showing that she had a lot to learn if she was to be a ninja. Now I just have to find Sasuke to give him his own lesson in the ninja arts. He thought to himself as he saw the young boy that he had been looking for with a look of determination on his face. The normally moody boy was smiling at Kakashi, which must mean that there will be major trouble about to hit the fan for the Jonin. Well, I guess that you'll be taking a lesson on ninjutsu since all of the other lessons have been taken by the other students. He was telling the boy before he was interrupted by his charge. I'm different from all of the others, said the black-haired young man as he took pride in his words, before moving his hands with great skill so that it formed the fire style. Fireball jutsu that was common among his clan when they were alive. One that showed the skills of the genin prospect as that was a chunin-level jutsu being performed by a lower-level ninja, but then the Uchihas trained hard to perfect any and all fire jutsu so that wasn't a surprise. Pulling out another chakra-powered switch, he avoided the fireball that would have roosted him if he had been in that spot, but that switch allowed the teacher to get the better of the student by letting him sink into the earth under Sasuke without being detected. That was when he used his own jutsu on the young man that hoped to become a ninja, the earth style. Headhunter jutsu to pull down the boy dressed in blue into the earth until it was only his head sticking up from the ground that was now his prison. You're right, Sasuke. You are different from Naruto and Sakura, but as we say, different is not always better. The nail that sticks up is the one that is going to be hammered down. Kakashi told the young man as he decided to go and check up on the first student to try and kill him during this test. Using the skills of his profession, he arrived to see Naruto finally getting himself free from the anti-ghost rope and figuring out how to get rid of the foam that was now covering him. Falling down to earth, Naruto finally landed in front of the lunches that Kakashi had set up for his students when the final aspect of the test would be revealed if they didn't pass the first aspect of the test. Naruto's stomach growled with the hunger of missing a meal and having to work out afterwards, proving that the boy was hungry. Obviously thinking with only his stomach, the young man took on a devilish look on his face as he looked at the lunches. Licking his lips, he spoke out loud. No one said it would be against the rules for me to have a little break to get my second wind. A little food and I should be back in the game. Naruto reached out to take the lunch that would have gone to the winners. He takes a box and prepared to sit and eat. Kakashi caught him while wearing his special gloves and used some of the special rope that was remaining to tie the ghost boy to one of the wooden posts. Except that it wouldn't be fair to the other students who have been working hard on empty stomachs, now would it? So you will be waiting here until the test ends in, the next couple of minutes. He told the violet boy, noticing that the boy needed work on his strategy. In his mind, you would think that he noticed that he could phase through the wood of the post. He then waited for his students to show up before the time limit ended. In the forests, Sasuke was getting filling with rage as he thought about the way that he had been trapped by his sensei, stuck in the dirt up to his head just because he didn't expect the attack from below. Now he had to figure out a way to get out from his earthly prison. Then he heard a voice say, "Huh?" He looked in that direction only to see his female teammate looking directly at him. He called out to her, "Sakura?" He was hoping that she might be able to pull him out of the situation that he found himself in, as an extra pair of hands might be of use in digging himself out of the mess. Then she screamed at him. Sasuke's just a head without a body and he's still talking. Terror could be seen clearly on her eyes as if she had seen a nightmare come to life when she was looking at him. Then the light went out of her eyes as she fainted in front of him, removing the only aid that he had to dig himself out of the hole that he had found himself in. Sasuke was stunned by her action as that was not something you would expect from someone whose job included killing other people upon command. "And that's my partner," he said sarcastically as he tried to figure out another what out of the land that held him. A little later, Sasuke found himself standing next to the post that was holding Naruto, bound in rope so that he couldn't move. On the other side of the ghost boy, was his pink hairstalker. Their sensei was walking over to a stone that was engraved with something. Their sensei looked thoughtful for a moment, before he spoke. On this stone is the names of some of the best ninjas of the entire village. Ninja who have earned the respect and admiration of the entire village. Well, my name is going to be on that stone someday. I'm going to be one of the best ninja in the village, and when I am on that stone everyone will respect me. Naruto exclaimed loudly as he continued to struggle with his robes. Kakashi turned and gave Naruto a dirty look. Everyone on that stone are dead, having sacrificed their lives for the lives of the village. The gray-haired man said softly, yet firmly. That caused all of the students to become silent, each feeling embarrassed by Naruto's comment. I have some good news. I have decided that I won't be sending any of you back to the academy. Spoke the one-eyed man as the students got their hopes up at the idea they had all passed before they were crushed by his next words. All three of you are being dropped from the program permanently. The reason behind this test was teamwork, something that none of you know anything about. Not one of you alone could take a Jonin like me on by yourselves, but if you worked together as a team you would have gotten the bells. The Jonin told them as he tried to explain the test. But sensei, there were only 2 bells? Sakura asked as if to try and figure out what it was that Kakashi was trying to say. Sasuke could also try to wonder what the reason behind the 2 bells. Those were a misdirection to cause you to think that only 2 of you could pass the test. If you had been able to see past that deception, you would have realized that a Genin team is made up of 3 students and 1 Jonin instructor for a reason. Teamwork is the answer. The scarecrow-like man leapt with great speed and got Sasuke in a position where he couldn't attack. Sakura, kill Naruto or Sasuke dies. Sakura was frozen with dread, looking like she thought that their teacher had gone mad. Kakashi let Sasuke up as he explained, in this life there will be hard choices like that, but if you work as a team you will always find a way around these problems by working together. But you 3 couldn't do that. Sasuke, you believed that you are so better than anyone else that you don't need their help, but you do need their help if you are going to survive as a ninja. Sakura, you were so worried about Sasuke that you didn't think about teaming up with Naruto. Naruto, you were so fixed on doing things by yourself, and while you did have a good chance to win with your Raichi, you would have had a better chance using that Raichi with the aid of the others. The Uchiha hung his face down as he had to look over the mistakes that they had made with the test. When he looked up again he saw his teacher standing before the engraved stone once again. The gray-haired man turned to them again and spoke, I am going to give you a second chance to pass this test. We will run through it again after lunch. However, only Sasuke and Sakura are going to eat since Naruto tried to have his lunch early. That is an order, I'll be back soon. The teacher tossed the pink and black-haired students 2 lunchboxes, then disappeared. Sasuke thought for a moment about the test they had just experienced and then orders that Kakashi had just given him. He could sense that something wasn't right about that. Then he heard the growl of Naruto's belly and realized that they didn't have a chance if Naruto was weak. Eat, you'll be completely worthless in the test if you don't eat anything. I don't sense our sensei anywhere near us, so it should be alright for you to eat. Sasuke said, hoping that his hunch was right about the reason for the test. Sasuke was interested in seeing that Sakura was trying to feed Naruto her lunch as well. She didn't seem to like to feed Naruto while his hands were tied. If it was me on the pole, I bet she wouldn't have that much trouble feeding me. Sasuke thought to himself as they feed their teammate. It was after the sound of Naruto's stomach had stopped, that there was a burst of smoke that signaled the appearance of their sensei. Kakashi spoke, you have disobeyed my orders. I hope that you are ready to take the punishment that I am going to give you. As he did some hand signs, thunder clouds covered the sky as the wind picked up and lightning struck the ground behind them. The one-eyed ninja asked, any last words? Quote, it was then that Sakura said, we gave him food because he's our teammate and that the 3 of us are one. With that Naruto was agreeing over and over again, as Sasuke just nodded in agreement in a subtle manner. He was an Uchiha and he would face destiny head-on. The 3 of you are one. That's your excuse? The 3 young ninja looked on in terror at their sensei as they expected the worst, before being surprised by his words again in a soft voice, you pass. That caused them to look shocked at the words that the older man had said. In fact, you're the first team that I have passed and now you're my responsibility. To realize one of the most important rules for a ninja, those who break the rules are scum, that is true. But those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. Remember that when we start training tomorrow. You are dismissed. Kakashi turned to disappear, but spoke one thing before doing that. Naruto, you do realize that you could have phased through the post at any time? The black-haired boy could only shake his head as the violet-haired one had a look of pure stupidity on his face as he leaned back and into the post. The ropes loosening their hold on him, fell as the boy shot up the post to float above it in a clumsy manner. Well, this is going to be an interesting team. Sasuke though as he headed home for more training. Kakashi Hitaki was sitting with the other two sensei whose students had passed the test that the Hokage had created to increase the teamwork of his ninjas. One was the son of the Sandame, Asuma Sarutobi, who was teaching the current team of Ino Shika Chokombo that was made famous by their fathers. The other was a recent Jonin by the name of Kurenai Yuhi, who was the instructor of the team of Hyuga, Aburame and Inazuka. The former looked a little like a younger version of the Hokage, with black hair and beard, tan skin and brown eyes. He held a laid-back personality and a vice in the form of a smoking habit. The female member of the trio was a lovely woman that a beautiful yet sisterly at the same time, with ruby eyes and long flowing black hair. She was a recent addition to the rank of Jonin as well as being a mistress of the genjutsu ability to create illusion and alter behavior. The gray-haired teacher was leaving one ear into the conversation as he thought of his students and their needs. It was then that Asuma asked him about his students and if they passed their test. Taking a moment to gather his thoughts from what he had been thinking, he began to explain that his new students had passed the test on the second chance. Then he began to discuss each student. Sakura needs to decide if she really wants to be a ninja or not, since it seems that she is just following Sasuke around as he travels this path. If she decides on being a ninja, and can see past being a fangirl, she might become a strong kunoichi. She is bright enough if she's not distracted by our little heartthrob, but could use more physical work to build up her chakra capacity. It is also refreshing to have someone that is a normal person on a team of oddballs. The two other ninja nodded as they understood the analysis of the student. About the Uchiha, how is he? He has a lot of people's hopes riding on him to bring back the clan as well as the honor that it once had. Asuma said as he mentioned the boy that was considered the golden boy of the leaf. Their eyes filled with interest as they wondered his fate. Sasuke, he's a piece of work. He is so focused on trying to kill his brother, he overlooked the need for his teammates. He did think of other when he needed to, but it wasn't his first thought. I know that I have a lot in common with the boy as we both bear the Sharingan and tragic pasts, but I am worried that he might seek any power that could kill his brother at any cost. He's going to need more attention in order to make him realize the strength that can be gained by being part of the Will of Fire. The one-eyed male said as he took a sip of tea before continuing, he's the only one that doesn't have first loyalty to Leaf, unlike Sakura and Naruto. Which will be the focus of my lessons with him, unlike the others. What about Naruto? I heard the rumor that he has managed to activate his Kekkei Genkei, the Raichi. With that and the other thing, is he dealing with it all right or might he need some counseling? Kurenai asked curious about the student, while holding a concerned tone in her voice that was not common when dealing with Naruto. Naruto is a ninja filled with surprises, only one of which is the Raichi. The tools that the Ghost Hunter unit has produced have been effective, even if they still need major work to become practical. The Ghost Grabber gloves alone waste too much chakra to be used long-term. The anti-ghost rope still has the weaknesses of rope in that it can be cut or untied with enough work. What shocked me was his overshadowing jutsu, which seems to be a natural version of the Yamanaka mind transfer jutsu. He managed to enter my body and take control of me for a few seconds. If it wasn't for the fact that he hasn't been trained to take over bodies and I was trained against having spirits invade mine, he would have won the test the wrong way. The sensei seemed a little proud at the action of his student, even if it wasn't something that he had wanted at the time. Still, he has problems seeing through obvious traps and could use extra training with his strategy, genjutsu and taijutsu. Plus he seemed limited in the number of shadow clones that he could create in his spirit form, for some reason. I also get the feeling that we have only seen the top of the iceberg that is the Raichi, there is more that lies underneath that bloodline. The overshadowing abilities got me to thinking of the only people in the village that could help train Naruto in those kind of skills. He told them as they held the light of understanding in their eyes. Ino's family, the only clan in the whole village that specializes in spirit possession jutsu. I have to admit that they could help each other out with both of their skills in possession, perhaps even leading to the development of more powerful versions of those jutsu. The village legends did say that the clan learnt their abilities from a dead ancestor, but in what way are you going to introduce this to the family? Asuma said as he lit up a cigarette, a minor hint of interest being revealed with the smoke. Well, most people do still look at Naruto in a negative light. The clan is strongly loyal to the village and would help with anything that could make it strong. They also trust the Hokage's word even if they are cautious about Naruto. They are also close to the Nara and Akamichi clans. The young sons of those clans have been known to hang out with Naruto. So there is possibility that they might be willing to give him a chance because of those two. The real work would be getting Ino and Naruto to work together as they are of similar levels in their unique arts. With one being the top Kunoichi Sasuke fan and the other being the annoying dead last, that might make at least an interest pair to watch training. If they don't kill each other first. Kakashi said with a smile, which caused Asuma to laugh and Kurenai to hold back her laughter. At a certain ramen shop, Naruto was eating his usual meal of ramen at his favorite restaurant, Ichiraku. He had taken a break from training after the test so that he could refill his belly with fuel, and was in the middle of his 7th bowl when he noticed that his teammates had just arrived at the stand. He was wondering why they were arriving at this stand. Were they interested in ramen as well? He finished off the rest of his bowl as the two of them took the seats next to him, likely so that they could talk to him. Naruto, we were just wondering if you could tell us more about your Raichi. I mean, we never heard about it from Iruka-sensei in the academy with all of the other important bloodlines of Konoha. Is there a reason for it not to be known in our village, like your clan being from a different village? Is there an entire clan of people with the same kind of power that you have? Sakura said, making sure that her voice was loud enough to be heard by the blonde boy, but not by others. Naruto thought back to the cover story that his sensei had started during the test, which he figured had been created by the silver-haired man or been told to him by the Hokage. He began to spin the story. I don't know much about it. I was told by the Hokage that it was an old bloodline that one of my ancestors had. The fact that I got it to activate just seems a random piece of chance. There has been a few pieces of paper that talk about it, but nobody knows the full range of powers it holds. So I got to work hard to figure it all out and know what it is that I can now do. I can use some of its powers without transforming, but it's not under my control then. I can completely control it only by going ghost, so that means I have to practice in that form. Naruto made a sign to order another bowl of ramen, which was followed by his teammates. The fox boy noticed that he was being observed closely by the last of the Uchihas, as if he was looking for a hidden treasure that Naruto was the key to finding. So what have you found out about this Raichi so far? What can you do? Asked the black-haired boy as he was stared at the black and orange-dressed boy. I would like to keep most of it secret, but since we're on the same team I might as well tell you. Naruto explained the increase in his physical abilities during his transformation and the basic powers of flight, intangibility and invisibility. He also mentioned the power of overshadowing, his phasing into a person's body to take it over. He also told them that he had only a few days of practice with his new form and hadn't really got into any good training with his bloodline powers. As he spoke, the bowls arrived for his team. He didn't keep quiet as he trusted old man Tucci and his daughter, since they didn't give him the same eyes that most other people did. Likely because the ghost boy helped to keep them in business with his hunger. I should really ask old man Hokage for more details on the Raichi. I have a feeling that he might have some notes on it that I can use in helping me train. Naruto said, before he was hit by the fist of Sakura. Naruto, you should be more respectful to Lord Hokage. You shouldn't be calling him an old man. The woman told him as she frowned at him. He was going to argue the point, but decided to drop it for now. It sounds like the Raichi could be of great use for a ninja, since it grants main abilities that could aid one on a mission. The ability to fade from sight and pass through most barriers as well as the rapid speed of flight would tip most battles in your favor. Naruto looked smug as Sasuke said that. But that changed as the Uchiha continued. However, Kakashi-sensei showed that it could be countered with the right equipment. Perhaps even with specially developed jutsu it could be neutralized or countered. Naruto ate for a moment before he spoke in answer. That just means that I have to work harder to develop my own skills in countering those counters, finding ways around those equipment, so that I can become Hokage. To become the Phantom of Konoha, the greatest ninja ever. Pride beamed from Naruto's face as he gave his closed-eyed foxy grin. His teammates just shook their heads in acceptance of the ego of the ghost boy. Sakura was poking around with her food for a moment before she turned and looked at Naruto with curious eyes. She spoke a question, "Naruto, what is it like to fly?" "I've always wondered what it would be like to be able to fly. Even wondering if there was some kind of jutsu that would allow one to do that, but all there seems to be are exercises in advanced jumping. What is it like to fly?" This question also got Sasuke's head up as he looked interested in the answer to the question his female team member had asked. Naruto wondered how to reply to that for a minute, while taking in more ramen. Then he told them, "It's like running into the wind, faster than you can ever run on your own. It's like floating in the water, only without being pushed down by gravity. It's like being set free of all of the cares of the world, so that it's only you and the universe. It's jumping into the sky, but having no limit to how high you can climb. You can't describe it completely without experiencing it." Naruto had his eyes closed as he told them of his experiences flying. He looked at them, to see the lost on their faces as they figured out that they might never be able to experience. Naruto had a brainstorm at that moment. "With my enhanced strength of the Raichi and time to practice with that plus my flying, I might be able to carry you guys up into the sky with me when I fly. Then you can experience it yourselves," Naruto said, trying to bring the smiles back to at least Sakura's face. Both looked with some joy, which was surprising on Sasuke's mug. It, however, made Naruto feel good to make someone else happy. Some that he wanted to repeat in the future. At the Yamanaka flower shop, Kakashi had just walked into the shop after hearing that Inoichi was there that day. He had finished talking with his peers about their students and giving input on what they should do to improve their students. Everything about Naruto's bloodline came back to the fact that only people able to train him with his overshadowing ability were this clan. He was wary about trying to get their help as he was not sure their opinions on Naruto. With all of the people harmed by the Kyuubi, they could be bitter against the boy. It could range from seeing Naruto as a hero for imprisoning the beast to seeing him as the demon reborn. So he was on full alert as he saw the older man working at the counter with his young daughter. "Kakashi, it's great to see you again. I hear that you're teaching a Genin team this year, and the rumors say that you passed them. So they figured out the secret behind your test." The older blonde moved from behind the counter, so that he could shake the hand of the one-eyed ninja. They greeted each other with the traditional greeting, before the visiting ninja expressed what he needed. "Inoichi, I need a word with you. In private," Kakashi said, hinting in his voice that this was a secret related to the business that they were both in. "Alright, follow me." The boar-named man moved to take his fellow ninja to a private office that was used for business involving using flowers for official duties. Shutting the door so that they could not be heard, the flower shop owner asked, "What is it that you need me for, Kakashi? I can't figure out why you would need me if you're just teaching Genin. The Hokage and I want to keep this secret for now, but I figure if I am going to get your full help that you have to be filled in. Naruto Uzumaki has awakened a Kekkei Genkai called the Raichi. It has the effect of duplicating the abilities of ghosts and spirits. That is on the lower end of secrets. The higher level secret is that it was created by Orochimaru. We have started a cover story that it is a lost bloodline that has been rediscovered. It has had no negative effect on Naruto, other than scaring him for a few minutes. We have not told him about Orochimaru." The gray-haired man debriefed the story to his peer as he awaited an answer. The Yamanaka nodded his head asking, "Wait, don't tell me. He has developed something close to the mind transfer jutsu that is my clan's trademark. Or at least some variant of that, and now you need my help in training the boy in the art of possession." The master of possession looked thoughtful as if trying to figure out something. There was a lot that the other man had to understand. "You don't think that Naruto is the Sharingan started making sure that the word unspoken was heard clearly. "No, not really. I saw him with Shuza and Shikaku's sons with him. He didn't seem like a bad boy. It's just with my daughter chasing the Uchiha, I didn't have the much contact with him. However, there is a part of me that is envious of his bloodline. It was said that my clan gained its jutsu from watching spirits, so to have those powers in the blood, it would certainly give a boost to my family's fortunes." There was a little smile on his face as he said this as he ended with a laugh. "Look at it like this, if you train with the boy you might be able to find a way to improve those jutsu. With the ability to battle spectrally, it should increase skills in battling those that have more powerful defenses. It can allow you to find out ways to use the experiences that you have with the spiritual aspects of chakra to increase your abilities. Even develop new family jutsu to pass down to Ino's children. The instructor asked his ally, hoping to entice him into teaching his student. I can teach him, but he'll also need a sparring partner to practice his skills with someone that same power level as he is. But I expect that you've figured that out already and have talked with Asuma about getting time for my daughter to practice with him. Kakashi could only look a little shame-faced as he made a motion in agreement. Inoichi continued, I will take the boy under my wing if he promises to keep my family's secrets like they're his own. Just like Shuza and Shikaku's kin, we keep each other's secrets like an extended clan. He would just have to be introduced into that brotherhood. Do you think that he could handle it? As long as you treated him honestly and with respect, I believe that he could do that. From what the Hokage has told me about the boy's relationship with Iruka, once he gained the trust of the boy, Naruto was a loyal friend to the teacher. Even defending his sensei from the traitor Mizuki, who was on paper much more powerful than Naruto. I still have to see that and take some time to earn his trust, so I am just giving a second-hand account. But I trust in the Hokage's judgment. He didn't get to be Hokage from being a fool. They looked at each other for a long time before Inoichi moved to a cabinet and took out a bottle of sake and a couple of glasses. Let's seal the deal with a glass of the good stuff. I'll give lessons to Naruto and treat him like he was one of my own, and you'll get him to help me to improve my family's range of jutsu in exchange. After a few sips, we'll work out what days of the week that he'll show up here for the training. I would also like a show of his skills with his bloodline with a little hand-to-hand combat with the kid. I'm just curious about the different abilities that this ghost blood of his can do. The rice alcohol was poured into the dishes and passed to the two men in the room, in preparation of the barter that they had made. The hope of improving both clan and ninja was on their minds as they did so, in alignment of the will of fire that held them together. The next day, the students of Team 7 were sitting on a bridge that they were told would be the meeting place for their genin team. They were still trying to adjust to the knowledge that they had gotten about each other, especially the strange ghostly powers of the blonde boy. The boy in question was still trying to train with the base abilities that he had since he couldn't really train with his overshadowing abilities alone. He was also getting annoyed with the lateness of his sensei. It was something that was reflected with both of his fellow students as he could see signs of their frustration of their sensei's bad habits. They had been waiting for at least 2 hours before their teacher showed up. You're late, Sakura yelled at the older man, venting her wrath at him with a sense of purity of fury. Hello, I was on my way over until I found a fish that was drowning, sigh. He tried to explain, obviously not caring about being believed or not. Liar, replied their female comrade, before she stopped to allow their instructor to speak. He cleared his throat as he spoke, I was just going over some issues of training. The major thing that has appeared is the fact that Naruto has a bloodline that no one has seen in a long time, which makes training that ability harder than normal. I have, however, found a sensei with similar talents as Naruto except they do it through jutsu rather than a blood talent. So I have arranged for you to train with this sensei and his daughter every few days to hone your spirit abilities. In exchange you are to keep their family secrets between them and yourself, as a matter of trust for all the parties involved. I will make sure that you will not be missing anything as I train with Sakura and Sasuke, since I will also be providing that to your secondary sensei as well. In many ways it would be like you would be training with a clan, like many other ninjas in your class have done. Naruto was surprised that his sensei was sending him to another teacher for training with his Raichi, but he had to expect that there would be trouble with finding a way to train a half-ghost. He was also curious about this sensei, since had bad experiences with ninjas before due to his tenant. He simply asked, who's gonna be my new teacher, Kakashi-sensei? Inoichi Yamanaka, you'll also be training with his daughter Ino. They are the only ninja with experience with some of the tricks that you can do, so they will have an easier time training you than I would. The fact that their special jutsu are family secrets that only a select few are allowed to be taught should be an honor. Which you be repaying them by aiding them in strengthening those clan skills by training with them. It's my belief that your ghost powers could be the inspiration for new jutsu, and with the inherited knowledge of the Yamanaka clan, they could be a great benefit for the village. Something that is one of the greatest part of a Hokage's job, in aiding his fellow ninja. spoke their teacher as he explained more about the deal. Naruto thought to his grandfatherly role model of the Sandaime and knew that was the truth, as the old man was always there to help the blonde as well as others. The ghost boy was about to speak about how he would do it and prove he would be Hokage when the female member spoke, so Naruto is going to be training with Ino Pai. Ino with his ghost powers? With his phasing, invisibility and overshadowing abilities. Naruto had a crush on Sakura for a while and had seen many darker sides of her, but what he didn't expect was the sight of evil glee that seemed to cover her face for a few moments. It caused the hairs on the back of his neck to stand up and shiver at that nasty grin on her face. He didn't want to know what it was that she was thinking. It was likely something only girls could think of, which would drive sane men mad. Yes, he will be training with them with some of those abilities. The clan may not be able to do all of the same things as our blonde friend can, but they should have more of an idea how to train with him. Ino is important as it gives him a chance to train with someone the same power level as he is starting with, as they are both beginners. Inoichi will be using his deeper knowledge and time served as a ninja of great respect to monitor their growth. The gray-haired man told them of the training. I am willing to do whatever hard work is needed for me to become a stronger ninja, to get one step closer to becoming Hokage. If they can help me perfect my Raichi, I'll keep all of their secrets and make their jutsu more powerful. I will work hard to make my dream come true, and nothing is going to stop me from making that happen. Besides, how hard could it be? Naruto asked, feeling confident about his new training instructor. You do remember Ino, Naruto? In that same class as us, hanging around Shikamaru and Choji all of the time. Blonde with blue eyes and a very loud voice. Sakura told him, trying to jog his memory. Which worked, as he remembered the girl in question, as she was the major rival for Sakura in the Sasuke fan club. She wasn't someone that Naruto had a lot of time to hang around with, but with the exception of Sakura, no Sasuke fan could be good news for him. Ino was likely to spend much of the training trying to find out more about Sasuke and trying to see if Sakura had gotten any closer to the #1 rookie. Doesn't matter, I will find a way to improve myself. I will even improve Ino if I have to. I have a duty to become strong for my dream. Naruto has told those who had gathered. Kakashi nodded in understanding as he continued. Now we will begin our first D-ranked mission, the first official mission of this team. We just have to report to the Hokage Tower to pick it up. So let's have a little race to tower. Let's go. At the Yamanaka shop. Ino, I need to talk to you about something. Called out the voice of Inoichi, the father of the girl in question. Ino was curious about what it was that her father was going to talk to her about, since she was just getting home from a minor mission with her team. It was not what she expected when she wanted to become a ninja, as it was just getting groceries for a couple of old ladies throughout the village. She was hoping that her father would be starting her training with the jutsu that were the trademark of her clan, much the way that her teammates would be training with their fathers for the unique skills their families were known for. She rushed to the office that her father used for his ninja business and asked him, "What is it that I can do for you, Daddy? Are you going to teach me more about the mind transfer jutsu? Or something brand new like a super mind control jutsu? Well, we will be improving your skills with our jutsu. But I was going to mention that during your training you will be getting a new sparring partner. Someone to practice possessions with so that you can improve your jutsu and chakra talents." That was why Kakashi was here. One of his students is the boy that you will be training with. Inoichi told his daughter before being drowned out by a squeal. I'm going to be training with Sasuke. I knew that true love would conquer all. Eat that forehead, girl. I get private lessons with Sasuke. Ino held her hands to her cheeks to help hide the deep blush that she had on her face. Her eyes closed so that she could fantasize about training with Sasuke and causing the boy to fall for her. She was definitely glad that she had memorized the name of the teacher of her main crush. She now knew that the reason that his sensei was at her shop was to give her father this great news. Actually, it's not Sasuke that you will be training with, Inoichi said, with one hand moving to the back of his head to scratch it in a nervous way. Ino's hands dropped as his eyes opened wide like saucers. She asked, if not him, then that means it's Naruto. Images of the dead last of the class. A boy that had failed the ninja tests 3 times and seemed to just pass this year due to some strange fluke. The idea that her training partner would be an idiotic pervert rather than the god that was Sasuke was hard to take. What reason in hell is Naruto, of all people, going to be training with us? The young woman was shocked at the idea. but anger was starting to crawl up from her mind. Especially if she wasn't given a good reason as soon as possible. Turns out that Naruto has a Kekkei Genkei, a bloodline limit, that gives him ghost-like powers including the ability to possess other people's bodies. Much like the jutsu of this family, but in a more physical way. I was asked by Kakashi to train Naruto with this aspect of his powers as well as other abilities, which I accepted for many reasons. One is that this training could help you increase the strength of your spirit so that your mind transfer jutsu are harder to beat. Another is the fact that we might be able to come up with new jutsu by studying his natural ghost-like talents. Her father answered, causing Ino's mind to turn on that thought. Iruka-sensei told us about bloodline limits and how they help strengthen the village by the power they give to the clans that hold them. But he never mentioned a ghost-like one, so I take it that it's unusual. The fact that the mind transfer jutsu requires me to send a large fragment of my spirit out to control the foe's body means that training with a ghost should improve it. Plus there is the knowledge that my clan was said to learn its arts from a spirit would also make training with Naruto make sense. She thought to herself as she looked at the reasons for the training. Still, it's Naruto. The same boy that created the perverted Jutsu that allows him to take the form of a naked female version of himself that causes explosive nosebleeds in other perverted men. Who knows what other goofy jutsu that he has come up with since then or what perverted things he could do with his powers. There is also the insane pranks that he pulls like doodling all over the heads of the Hokages on the mountain. He just doesn't seem like a good training partner. She looked at the negatives about Naruto before turning on one final line of thinking. It would give me access to the cell that has Sasuke in it, even if it's only through Naruto. He can get me closer to my future husband, allow me to keep an eye on Forehead Girl and help me from letting those two get too close together. All I have to do is be smarter than Naruto, then I can get stronger and get my man at the same time. For love I am willing to sacrifice being annoyed by Mr. Doby. Ino finished her thoughts with an idea about how to deal with the news, as his father was watching her take the news. Naruto isn't my favorite classmate, but if it makes me a better kunoichi, I am willing to work with him. I will learn how to become the strongest Yamanaka in all of history and make everyone respect our clan. So when do we begin the training with Naruto? Ino asked, getting herself ready for the hardship that she had to experience for love. In a couple of days we will begin our exercises. I have also asked him to spar with me in physical combat, so that I can see all of his ghost powers firsthand. It should also be good for you to watch and know what your partner can do in a fight. Her father explained, not noticing that she had rolled her eyes at the idea of the ghost boy being her partner in anything. But she greeted that information and she decided to brace herself for this ordeal in her path to strength and romance. She said finally, I will be ready for that, Daddy. I will make you proud. In an unknown location, the hawk had brought a message from the village hidden in the leaves, where his spies had been lurking so they could bring him news of his enemies and their situation. The news that the bird that had brought him included handwritten copies of files about an experiment that was finally bearing fruit, his ghost-human hybrid experiment that he had originally launched in that village. Before his minion had been collected and his details had been leaked to the Hokage, his former teacher. Still, it is quite informative about the test subject. This Naruto Uzumaki that has gained the full power of the Raichi as well as being the container of the Kyuubi. Interesting combination of circumstances that has led him to a great potential. It almost makes me sad that I can't use my curse seal on him to bind him to me. However, the Kyuubi makes such tools too dangerous to use without gaining some negative side effects that could be used against me. Orochimaru thought to himself, as he knew that troubles that could occur with giving the boy a powerful form with a ranging aspect like his seals. Still, it would do to watch this boy so that I can gauge his power when compared to my other success with the Raichi. His version of the serum was more refined than the version given to the other test subjects, to allow for easier absorption by the body. The other version had only a 1 in 15 chance of providing a successful subject, but one that is likely to be weaker than young Naruto's full potential. Still, many of the failures are creatures of power that can be of some use. Even after death, the snake summoner pulled out his full files on the development of the Raichi, a side effect of his research in immortality. He had to admit that with his experiences with the Forbidden, he had become something like the ghosts that he used as the base for this bloodline. It did increase his lifespan by years as he used disturbing techniques to gain more time to make his desires reality. The Raichi had become a sort of plan B for the day that his original plan were to fail. He had learnt to keep a spare plan up his sleeve for any occasion. To see another example of it would add to his knowledge. A small collection of cells would allow him to use the DNA mixture in them to make an improved serum or even clones. Of course, before he was to collect those cells he would have to see how effective the leaf serum was compared to a subject with his secondary serum. That was why he was preparing for that subject to make it to the Chunin that would take place in the village of the leaf. It would seem that many of his plans that were to take effect during that period, which brought him to the other aspect of the news that was linked with Naruto. The fact that he was teamed with the Uchiha boy that was key to his further plans. So when I go after one, I will run into the other as well. So the planning must be perfect when I encounter the two of them. Otherwise, I might have just tried to kill Naruto while trying to gain my prize. Now I will have to develop something special for him while I recruit Sasuke. My shadow will be following me to this test so that I can learn much more about my two treasures. The pale ninja reached out for the paper and ink that he kept nearby so that he could write his further orders. His commands were basically for the observation of both the Uzumaki and the Uchiha boys, to note every growth and lesson that is gained and learned. A full profile write-up is to be expected by the Dark Master from the servants that he kept in the enemy's camp. He would also be training his shadow in their ninja arts as well as their abilities with the version of the Raichi that they hold. Then they would be ready to face off against Naruto. Still, I should think about giving Naruto a few playmates to train against so that he would be at full strength against my shadow. Some of my other experiments with the Raichi have given me access to less physical aids that should be able to test his mettle, to forge the raw iron into fine steel. I will send them to my main assistant in Konoha, so that he can deploy them at the best times for training. Ku. The Sannin laughed as he thought of the type of training the boy would face with these figures. He would send them through the ghost portal in his current lab to one that he had hidden in one of his unknown labs back in his former home, allowing for quicker travel between the two locations. Much in the same way they had passed the bird through so that it would not be detected by the enemy. The seals needed to build a stable doorway between this world and the ghost world were hard, but the help he had gained from his perverted former teammate during their training did help out a lot, proving that it was one of the only things the idiot was good for. He still had some work to do with the case cage about their combined effort to improve their lot in life when confronted with the plague of power that was in the hand of the fool called Hokage. They had a lot of time to plan before the event were to fall, which would give the Pale One time to find out all he could about the leader of the village hidden in the sand. Then it would not be a problem when the leader of sand were to be replaced so that he could move his plan smoothly without any trouble. Then I will get my payment for being overlooked by my knows better than I sensei, and having my just reward taken from me by that lesser ninja known as the Yondaime. The village could have risen with my power, but now it will fall under my heel. All shall know to avoid my wrath and that the way of peace only brings death from the strong. Then I can perfect my mission to know all of the jutsu in the world and live forever. Ku, thought the humanoid demon known as Orochimaru. Ino was preparing for the training session that would be occurring between the other genin, her Jonin father and herself. They had taken one of the training areas that had always been popular with her family as it had a number of wild flowers in a fields with trees placed around the flowers in a way that accented the fields while adding usefulness for training. Ino loved the flowers in this training area as they had a mixture of beauty and power in the form of different chemicals they produced that a ninja could take advantage of. Like poisons that could cause sickness, itchiness or even deadly in the right dose. Or they could be used for healing if mixed just right. Naruto had changed since the time that she had seen him in their academy days just a short time ago. He was dressed in a more stealthy suit of black, with only a hint of the loud orange that he had worn before. At first that was the only thing that she could see what different about him as he greeted both her and her father, calling her father Inoichi-sensei in a tone of respect that she didn't usually see. After the greeting her father had as Naruto to give an example of his ghost-like abilities that his bloodline allowed him to use. With a shout of Raichi, circles of white energy circled his midsection, rising and sinking over his body as they broke in two. The change was shocking to the girl as his hair seemed to change from its normal blonde color to a shade of dark violet. His eyes turned from blue to a glowing eerie green shade that screamed supernatural. The fact that they changed in some kind of transformation made her wonder what it was that this phantom blood of his could do. Besides, it might be cool to be able to change my eye and hair colors on a whim. Might make it easier to win Sasuke's heart by making them his favorite color, plus it would allow me to train with chakra by holding a jutsu for a long time. Then she took in the abilities of the low-level ninja would be showing against her higher-ranked father. The first thing he did was make a hand sign and then create some clones that appeared from the resulting smoke. Which was unusual as Bunshin was one of his worst jutsu and was the single leading cause for him being failed each year before this one. She knew that dad could defeat any clone that they had been taught in school since it was mainly a distraction technique. It turned her whole thinking around as she discovered that these clones were different from the ones that she had been taught, as one hit her father hard and knocked him down. So you do know that Kage Bunshin Jutsu. The shadow clone technique is like the traditional clone jutsu that you have learned, except that it needs more chakra and created a duplicate with a physical presence to it that can be handy with spying and training. Her father told her as he got back to his feet and leapt into action with a quick strike at the clones that were nearby him, only to pass through the body of the boy like thrusting a hand through thin air. It was then that Naruto and the clones vanished from sight of both Yamanaka, but then they heard his voice come from different places around them. The ghost boy laughed a little bit before saying, "Guess you're not ready to fight a ghost, right Inoichi-sensei?" Kakashi-sensei managed to get me with some kind of ghost gloves that a team from the village had developed to fight spirits, but I don't think that you have those gloves. Now I just have to show you my overshadowing technique, and that's all of the ghost powers that I have discovered so far. It was then that Ino saw Naruto fade back into sight as he appeared behind her father, floating in midair and making a goofy face. Before she could call out more than, "Look, oh you!" Naruto had flown into her father's body. The elder blonde stood shocked for a minute as his face changed and his eyes blinked to reveal new green eyes. The voice that left her father's mouth was that of the violet-haired spirit lad, "Ino, I am your father. You should stop kissing up to that Sasuke bastard and look for a super ninja, like Naruto." Then her father stuck out his tongue and pulled down his lower eyelid. "Naruto, you idiot, what the hell are you doing to my father?" She screamed at the boy that she had figured out was manipulating her father's body like a meat puppet. It was then that she noticed that her father had stopped making the silly gesture and was shaking like he was holding back something, like a high-level emotion or pain that she had never seen him express before. Then she could see Naruto shoot out of the body of her father as he crashed into a tree a few feet away. "I have to admit that your overshadowing technique is incredible, so much like my family's mind transfer jutsu. But without leaving a body behind that could be used as a weakness for the user, but I guess that is the advantage of having your spirit and body being one due to the Raichi. The similarity will be useful in training since we can use one to aid in improving the other. Showing us how to increase the strength of gaining control of an opponent and in developing a defense against someone with a similar talent that could be used against us." Inoichi placed his hand to his chin as he began to rub his face and think about what to do next with the training. Naruto had gotten up and moved to stand near where Ino was standing, seeming to listen to the words that his new sensei was saying. Ino was thinking about the powers that Naruto had shown them during the fight with her father. It proved that it would be hard to fight Naruto unless you knew how to defeat his invisibility and his power of passing through solid matter. She was also curious about how it was that Naruto had performed a more advanced form of the Bunshin. Something that he had so much trouble in at school. She hated to admit it, but this training lesson was getting more interesting to her than when her father had told her about it a few days ago. "Inoichi-sensei, is that training with your jutsu the reason that you and Kakashi-sensei were able to kick me out of your body when I took it over with my overshadowing technique?" Naruto asked, looking at the older man as if to find a reason for the defeats that he had suffered from the more ranked ninjas. Ino noticed that her father had risen an eyebrow at that comment and smiled brightly. "Yes, I was the one to train Kakashi in defense of having his body taken over by an alien force. It is a standard training exercise for a group that Kakashi had been a member of before he began to teach Genin. I worked with him and others to develop their mental strength so that they couldn't be dominated by the enemy. However, it is possible for both him and myself to be placed under the control of another if they had greater mental strength and training with their chakra. So it is possible that with the right training, that both of you might be able to become better than I am. That training begins here. Inoichi said as he sat down and motioned for his two charges to follow him in the same way as they continued. Ino, I want you to demonstrate the mind transfer jutsu on Naruto by trying to take control of his body. Begin. Ino, sitting across from Naruto, so that she had a clear shot at Naruto. Making the right hand signs, she spoke the name of the jutsu out loud before she seemed to lose consciousness. She could feel part of her own spirit pull out of her body as she moved slowly to the spot that the violet-haired boy was sitting before she merged into the male figure. She could feel the resistance of something that was pushing her back as she tried to go deeper into the body, similar to the times that she had tried to jump into her father without him noticing. She thrust her own mental strength at the invisible wall that protected the ghost boy as she finally felt the control as she gained control of his body. I'm in, Ino said as she jumped up in the other genin and experienced being a boy. Something that she had experienced before when she had experimented with her teammates. She then noticed that she was not going down from the high of her jump, as if she was floating in midair. Cool, I'm flying. I can fly. She then noticed that she didn't seem to be able to move very well. She also had trouble staying upright as her but seemed to be lighter than her head, trying to flip her over like standing on her head. I'm stuck. I can't believe that I'm stuck in this body that I can't control. You think that this bloodline would come with some kind of instruction on how to use it? She turned to look at her father and noticed that he was trying to hold back some giggles at the situation that she had gotten herself in. Swallowing his laughter, Inoichi spoke, try canceling the jutsu and returning back to your body. I'm sure that Naruto knows how to use his new body better than you do and can find a way down from where you got yourself. Ino nodded the best that she could in Naruto's body before making the cancel hand signal. She felt her spirit flow out of the body and back into the air, looking back to see Naruto start to sink to the ground. She wanted to call out a word of warning to him, but he managed to right himself within a few seconds. Naruto lowered himself to the ground and landed on his feet, looking around. He said, "How the heck did I get from sitting on the ground to floating in the air? Did Ino take control of me with her jutsu and that was why I was stuck in the air? I felt something forcing its way into me, but I just couldn't quite push it out. Why isn't she moving right now?" He noticed that Ino was motionless and turned his head to look at his new sensei for an explanation for the events that had occurred. Well, as I said before, there is a weakness to that jutsu. It allows a person to take control over the body of another person, but it requires the user to remove a piece of their spirit to overwhelm the victim's body. That leaves the body in a state of immobility that makes them vulnerable to attack. Also, any attacks on the victim's body will appear on the user's body. Which is why it was a good idea to have Ino leave your body before she hurt yourself. Another problem is the fact that spirit that we use moves so slow that also leaves the ninja's body open to damage. Inoichi commented, explaining the way that the jutsu worked so that Naruto could understand the differences between their technique and the ghost boys. Ino finally began to look like she was waking up from a trance-like state that she had placed herself under. She had been focusing mostly on getting back to her flesh, but she had heard the last words of her father and knew that he was explaining their jutsu to his new student. She shivered for a moment before she stood up next to Naruto. Alright, you two, I want you to try possessing each other one after another and try to prevent the other from entering your bodies. If the opponent gets control over your body, they get a point. But you can regain the point by forcing them out of your body. I will be keeping an eye on the two of you, to make sure that you are keeping the right score. I will be thinking of better exercises that I can give you, and Ino tried to avoid flying away with Naruto's powers. The old man to a seat at the foot of a tree as she and her opponent sat across from each other to challenge the other. Meanwhile, in the mind of the teacher, Inoichi was thinking about the possession that he had experienced from his newest student, wondering why it was that it differed from the spirit possession that he had used himself. He thought to himself, if it came from the observation of spirits, why does the spirit method seems to differ much more than the jutsu method? Is it just the fact that he has ghost blood in his veins rather than just ordinary human blood? Could this bloodline be used to enhance my own clan? He watched the two of them train and started to wonder why it was that Ino could have chosen someone like Naruto to have a crush on, rather than the Uchiha boy. The later one might have more attractions to the villagers, but he had a lot of problems that could hurt his little girl when she got rejected by him. The boy only cared about revenge, not romance. Naruto seems to be more well-adjusted even with the rejection of the entire village. He also looks like he might make a great ninja. I wonder if I should be using my fatherly influence to push those two together? Single quote. In a hidden lab within the Konoha, the mask figure stood before the shifting light green rip in the air that revealed the portal into the ghost zone, a dimension that lay on top of this one where the dead and creatures of spiritual energy made their homes. It was through this portal that the figure had received the hawk containing the message from his master, with the orders to test the subject that the masked man had talked about in the report. So the ghost vessel will need to be tested to show his true strength in reflection of the variables that have come into play. Containing the demon fox as well as using the more refined serum should remove many of the limits that the other test subjects. The master wants the boy to have some early tests before the major test of throwing the two ghost ninjas against each other. The figure looked at the files that had been collected during the experiments with the world of spirits. His master had captured and forced some of the spirits that lived in that alternative world to obey the commands of the snake Sanin. They could be summoned at any time using the special summoning jutsu that had been constructed using skills developed from forbidden arts. The question was which of the spirits that had been conquered by Orochimaru to send out after the boy as a first test. I think that one of the lower-level spirits would be a first good test, perhaps one of the animal spirits. A banished spirit that is not under the commands of one of the boss animals since we can't count on any of them but the serpents at this time. A snake, however, would be a sure sign of my master's hand that could build up the defenses of the leaf around Team 7. Which would not only resist the testing of Naruto, but also the access to the chosen host of my master. Papers came up as the names of banished animals were revealed to the masked ninja. The ones that caught his eye was the twin octopus spirits that while being weaker than most of the spirits that he had to call on, had an advantage with their ink that they could use in their attacks. Ink that could be used in ways that normal ink could not be used, like in the creation of living drawn creatures that could add in the attack. But it would be the best way to test his basic power for now, before I even think about sending one of the most powerful ghosts. Like Yumi the Hunter, a figure of dread in the ghost world due to the unending hunts of that ghost. Yumi is also an expert in advanced hunting technology that could be useful in capturing Naruto and Sasuke. That would be a name to remember in the future, with the bait of a rare ghost boy to hunt. However, there is still much to do to have Naruto prove himself. The figure moved to a special circle that had been designed for the purpose of calling ghosts through the portal. Cutting his hand with a kunai so that his blood would run free, he used the red ink of his body to write the symbols that would be needed for the summoning. Since the Ectopus were not bound by a normal summoning contract, this special ceremony would be needed to maintain control over them for the period of the mission. Once the special ink was set, he made the hand signs for the summoning jutsu. Then he called out, "Summoning jutsu, spirit version. Ectopus calling." Quote, the circle glowed purple as a beam of light that was a mixture of black and purple struck dead center with the portal, causing it to ripple in reaction to the constant energy. There was the sound of moaning before something moved out of the gateway to the spirit world, causing the purple light to latch onto them and suck them into the summoning circle. A wall of the purple-black energy ran along the line of the circle, holding what had been summoned within. Floating in midair in the center of the boundary were two bright green octopus with huge eyes and a mouth on their sides filled with teeth. That caused them to have a more human appearance than what was normally observed on sea life, but they could still be seen as the cousins of squids. They had 8 long tentacles that seemed to glow and shrink in length depending on the will of the spirit animals. Soon, they stopped and looked at the man in the mask. "I have summoned you here by order of Orochimaru, to perform a mission that he has for the two of you to perform." The man took out a card that was blank for a few minutes before it started to reveal the secrets that it held. An image of a blonde-haired boy as well as stats about that boy appeared on the paper, with the mystery man making sure to give a good look at the card to the Ectopus. "This is the boy that the master wants you to battle against. You are to use all of your power against him, it doesn't matter if he survives or not. However, you are not to harm this boy in your attack against the blonde child." The figure pulled out another card, which showed a black-haired boy that looked like he was brooding. "I should warn you that the blonde has the power to change his hair and eyes from blonde and blue to violet and green. That is part of the power that you will be fighting against. The master wants to see how this power might affect his plans, so that is why you are being sent against him. Now go and battle the child known as Naruto Uzumaki, reveal his true power." The figure made the sign to release the energy that was holding the ghosts in the binding seal, so that they could test the power of the ghost boy. The purple energy faded and the green octopus flew into the air phasing through the ceiling of the hidden lab. The figure walked over to a viewing crystal that his master had created so that his enemies and test subjects could be viewed. The figure would watch and record the conflict of the octopus and the vessel, to see if there was anything of interest for his master's plan. Elsewhere, Naruto was heading home from the practice that he had with the Yamanakas, learning more about the powers that he had been given. He thought to himself, training against Ino did help out with my skills in overshadowing, trying to break the mental defenses of my foe so that I can take complete control with my ghost powers. I also had to learn to block out some trying to get into my own body from the outside. I might not be as good as Inoichi-sensei or Ino with the ability to use possession, but that have shown me how much I have to work on so that I can perfect my power. Then there are all of the other powers that I have and might get while having this bloodline, since Event Old Man Hokage doesn't know what having ghost blood in my veins might do to me. I just wished that I could get a chance to try out my powers against something like me, to fight something like a ghost. Thought Naruto before he was slammed from behind by something. Turning around to get a better look at what it was that had hit him, he saw two green octopus-like creatures that were floating around in the air much like he could. Acting without thinking very long, he cried out, "Raichi!" That signaled his change into his ghost form as he jumped into the air to float opposite the octopus. Naruto then spoke up, "All right, you 8 armed freaks, I'm going to take you all down. Hear that? The future Phantom Hokage is going to bring you down." The two creatures just grinned like maniacs and then did something that Naruto didn't expect. They squirted out black goo that then started to take on the shapes of a tiger and an ogre. The two black goo creatures rushed in an attack on Naruto from the ground. The fox boy flew out of the reach of the two goo monsters, but couldn't fly out of the way of the ogre's club that pounded down on him to the ground. The ghost boy started to rise as he got a good look at the tiger about to slice him with its claws. Moving on instinct, he tried to dodge that. He was mostly successful with the exception of 3 lines of blood that came from having a flesh wound. Greenish-black blood flowed out of the wound. I guess that these guys can hurt me if they can touch me, which makes them some kind of ghosts. I have to figure out something that I can do that will take them down quickly. The violet-haired one began to rise up in the air at rapid speed, flying up till he was as high as the Hokage's tower. Then he moved so that he could make his attack, a dive bomb straight at one of the two good creatures. With his fist out, he hit the tiger creature with a powerful punch. The creature then exploded all of him, covering him in something that felt and looked like normal ink. Naruto tried to shake himself clean like a dog as he said, "That was gross. 1 down and 1 to go." One of the ghost octopus then spat out more ink onto the body of the ogre creature and gave the beast a pair of raven-like wings. The wings flapped and launched the ogre into flight so that it was slightly above Naruto. The answer from the genin was simple, "Crap. That's not fair, just when I found out a way to kick these guys' butts." The ghost ninja then rose so that he was facing the ogre with his back to the two octopus that had started the whole thing. Then the obvious came into the mind of the boy who had little strategy training, "Wait a minute. I still have my shadow clone jutsu. Why the hell didn't I think of that before?" With a short series of hand signs, he created 10 complete doppelgangers of himself to do battle with the ogre. The 11 charged the ogre trying to use the superiority of numbers to overwhelm the ink beast. Club launched at the clones, doing major damage with a single hit that caused a couple of the duplicates poof out in smoke. But they gave as good as they got with hits and punches that just didn't seem to have the same explosive effect as the dive hit that he had used against the tiger. Naruto heard the noise of more spitting occurring behind him as he turned to see 2 more winged ogres flying straight at him and his copies. He got out of the way as soon as possible as the 3 ogres started to destroy all of the clones that he had created. Used that little time to prepare, he signaled again for more clones that appeared shortly before the ogres eliminated the last batch. Naruto sent out the 10 copies out to battle with the ogre trio as he tried to figure out what it was that he could do against the ink monsters that he now faced. He thought to himself, I wonder if the ink trick is the only thing that these creatures can do, or is there something more that Octopus Brothers can do? I'm not sure that I can overshadow a ghost, invisibility doesn't look like it would work and phasing might not be possible. Damn it, I need a new ghost power now. Damn it, Damn it, damn it. Single quote. As he thought those last swear words, he pounded his fist into his flat hand in frustration. Once, twice, and on the third time something happened. A green beam of energy shot forward as fist and hand hit, hitting one of the ogres in the chest and causing it to explode into wet ink like the tiger had done with the dive punch. The ghost boy looked at the fist that was slightly smoking with the discharged energy that he had used to destroy the ogres. The two remaining ogres turned to look at him with their black eyes. The foxy ninja barely noticed as he tried to figure out what it was that he had just did with his fist, until they were on him with a double team attack. Naruto just instinctively pointed his twin fists at the ink beasts as he thought, come on, come on. Shoot that ghost element jutsu at them like you did last time. Closing his eyes, he tried to will himself to fire, and felt energy pool within him. The energy gathered around his stomach as it flowed up his torso and down his two arms till it hit his closed hands. Then it flowed over them and out as he heard the sound of the previous shot twice over. Then he felt wet ink cover him again, making his as dirty as he had been after the tiger. Opening his eyes, he saw the two ogres were gone and the two octopus were looking scared. Naruto couldn't help but be proud. I have a new ghost power, which means I'm one step closer to Hokage. Now time to make some octopus balls out of the two of you. The spy was watching the battle occurring with the young ghost boy and the ectopy, which had been going the way of the ghost animals with their ink attack. The ghost boy barely came up with an attack before the ghost octopi developed a counter, but then the boy had discovered another one of his ghost powers. So Naruto has discovered the secret of the ghost ray, the main means of attack for a ghost. That should increase the attack power of the genin with training, plus it is a base for other ghost tricks like the ghost shield. The boy is developing quicker than that of Jinei, Orochimaru's ace in the hole for this kind of battle. So I might have to step up the kind of ghost that I send after him, perhaps even using Yumi the hunter ahead of schedule. The figure moved to make notes for the master to read as he watched Naruto attack the ectopy. The fox boy grabbed at the arms of the spectral animals and used them to slam the twins into each other in a rather painful way. It was definitely a show of the younger man's skills in combat, which was surprising given the training that he had missed out on due to his condition. I might have to take a look out for the boy's training. Inoichi is an expert in the mental type ninjutsu that has made his clan famous, while Kakashi is one of the strongest ninjas in the village and likely to teach him ways to increase his natural powers. The spy noticed that Naruto was finished with the twins and had forced them away. Although they couldn't talk, it would be best to send them back to the ghost zone. Making the hand signs to end the summoning, there was a sudden wind that came from the portal as twin green orbs were seen coming from the ceiling into the portal. Now I want to see what the boy does next. Who does he go to? The spy asked himself as he continued viewing with the crystal. Elsewhere, in the village, Naruto flew across the village in his ghost form with great speed, using his powers to keep him from being seen by the villagers. He headed for the one place that he knew that he could find someone that might know what to do to help him. The Hokage Tower and the old man who had been like a grandfather to him. Arriving in the outer office and becoming visible in the shadows of the room, he went up to the secretary and asked to see the Hokage. The woman that looked after the meeting room didn't like him, like most of the village, but Naruto knew that she knew that the Hokage did. Given the fact the last girl had been fired for trying to get Naruto kicked out of the building, she tended to do her job despite her loathing of Naruto. The Hokage will see you in a minute, she told him as she pointed to a seat as far away from her as possible. Naruto moved to sit on that chair as he waited for the old man. He didn't have to wait long as the door opened and the woman motioned for him to enter. In the room, old man Hokage was sitting behind his desk looking at papers in the same way that some people looked at Naruto. Naruto spoke quickly to his elder. I was attacked by some octopus ghost things. They used some kind of ink attack that turned into living monsters. I had to use a dive bomb attack to beat one of them, but then they got wings and then I got a new ghost power. Slow it down, Naruto. I could barely make sense of what it was that you were saying. The Hokage seemed to wait for Naruto to take a deep breath as the old man continued. So you were attacked by ghost octopus and during the battle you discovered a ghost power. What kind of power was it? It was some kind of energy attack that came from my hand, that made a beam that blasted the ink monsters back into ink. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it. I was thinking about my ghost blast. Naruto told the other as he smiled his excited smile. Do you think that you can show me a smaller version of it? The Hokage said as he moved to pick up a small target that he had kept in his office. Naruto was confused and surprised that he had a target in the room and asked the Hokage why. It helps keep up my training as well as let me release my frustration with some of the least pleasant aspects of being the Hokage. Both my successor and my predecessors used training devices like this. The Hokage placed the object that looked like a training dummy next to an empty spot of wall. Now try to shot using a little bit of your power. Naruto decided to try shooting from his finger and held out his hand so that he was pointing at the target, concentrating on the energy that was coming from his body so that it started to flow from his stomach as last time. It was harder than before to get a grip on that energy, like there was some resistance to that power, but he managed to get it to start flowing up his body to his arms. Like water, it flowed down his arm and into the finger, where it seemed to get stuck. Naruto was starting to sweat as he tried to keep the energy moving beyond his body and towards the target. Just as he thought that he wouldn't be able to do it, he gave a tiny push and the beam came out of his finger in a large blast. A blast so huge that it forced him backwards, causing the finger to tilt up and move up the wall to the top of the room. It took seconds for Naruto to learn to stop that power, but by then the power of the beam was proved. The dummy was completely charred and turned into useless ash, but the char pattern on the wall and ceiling showed that the power of the blast seemed to weaken as Naruto tried to shut it off. Naruto turned to his mentor with a shamed look on his face, to see that the old man had a look of interest on his face. Interesting, the beam seems to be like an elemental attack, yet it is not like most elements that are known. The power of the beam seems to be adjustable, the only problem being that Naruto doesn't seem to have total control over it. But once he does, he might be able to create versions to knock out foes or destroy them. The Hokage didn't seem to notice that he was talking out loud, but his words were memorized by the violet-haired genin. So what does that mean, old man? What do you mean by an elemental attack? Why don't you think that I can control it? The ghost boy asked as he tried to get answers. As he did, he turned back into his blonde form. Well, I think that your lack of control is partly due to gain the power recently, however it might also has to do with your lack of chakra control. Your tenant gives you access to unlimited chakra due to his nature, but your chakra coils have not been trained in using this power effectively. Basically you waste the power it gives you, making it harder for you to perfect certain jutsu like the Bunshin. The Hokage then continued to explain his point. The Bunshin uses little chakra compared to the Kage Bunshin, but it also needs more control of that chakra. When you created your Bunshin, you put too much energy in them and they were warped by it. It differs from the Kage Bunshin, which sucks up chakra to create a more solid clone as well as multiple clones when used. This has nothing to do with you, as the Kyuubi's power overwhelms your control. This could have been corrected with help from your teachers. The Hokage frowned before he started to speak again. There are many in the village who have mixed feelings about you becoming a ninja. Some feared that you are the Kyuubi and if you were to learn to be a ninja you would use our skills against us. Others know that you are not the Kyuubi, but fear the same result due to your treatment. There are groups within the village that desired to personally train you to be a ninja, but in a way that would have made you into a soulless weapon for the village or their own desires. Naruto looked on shocked at the information that he had been told about his own life that he didn't know. So I made a compromise that leaves all people with a bitter taste. I would allow you to become a ninja, but you would only gain the aid of your teachers and the limited aid from myself that could be masked and taking care of you. That would leave becoming a ninja completely up to you, soothing those that did and didn't want you to be a ninja. It would also make your path harder as many of your teachers would not lift a finger to help you. The ninja leader smiled as he moved on to something that must have lightened his heart. The old man continued, but you have made me proud with the work that you have done to learn the ninja arts on your own. You have some faults, like being less than observant at times and missing the small details. This would lead to some people think that you are stupid, but the pranks you have pulled have proved that there is a keen mind in your thick skull. It is likely that you would have had a greater grade average if you had been given help. But everything happens for a reason, and I think this has happened to you to make you a stronger ninja. The old man placed his hand on the genin's shoulder, and gave him a smile like those that Naruto gave. Naruto had to nod and agree that while he might have passed earlier if he had gotten help, he would have missed meeting the people who were seeing him for himself for the first time. He thought to himself, even with these setbacks, I will become Hokage. When I gain that title, people will have to respect me for having to come from so far behind to be the one in first place. Out loud he asked his mentor, what did you mean when you said it was like an elemental attack? I know that Sasuke can do fire jutsu, is it something like that? Yes, that is it exactly. There are 5 main elements, from which each other elements come from. Since we are in the land of fire, we tend to use Kaiten, or fire-style element jutsu. The others are Fuuten or wind element, Raiden or lightning element, Doden or earth element and Suiten or water element. Other elements like wood or ice can be created from 2 of these elements used at once. The former professor explained, giving a basic lesson in jutsu. My ghost blast seems to be made up of some element linked with ghost, and spirit element or energy that doesn't fit with one of those elements. That means that I have something that most people aren't ready for during a fight. So if I can perfect the control of the energy, I might be able to make some new jutsu based on this. Naruto said, suddenly feeling pride at the power that he controlled. It also brings up the question of if this power can be used by a normal ninja not holding the Raichi. Since your body becomes one with your spirit and uses ectoplasm with or without chakra, it might not be possible for those without the Raichi. However, if it is possible, it might help the village in times of trouble. Was the comment given by the elder. Well, I can try and see if I can teach my teammates or even Ino and her dad about this energy when I train with them. Maybe Kakashi and Inoichi senseis might be able to help me with the control of my ghost blast, or at least come up with something that might help. Plus it might help with coming up with combat moves that my team can use. Naruto began to give a positive spin to the events as they had unfolded. That is the will of fire, working with others so that everyone involved becomes stronger. Keep thinking in that way and you will reach your goal of replacing me. I'll get Kakashi to come to the office so the 2 of you can discuss this, since he is your main instructor. I am also going to advise you to get some of the special equipment from the Ghost Hunter section, especially a new device to hold spirits till we can send them home. We have a major holding tank for them until we can find a way to the ghost dimension. Hokage mentioned as he removed himself gentle from Naruto to a window, where he summoned a bird. He wrote a message and placed it on the bird's leg and launched it out the building, a messenger for Kakashi. Later, Kakashi had to look at his young charge and wonder what it was that he could be teaching the boy, especially after all of the growth that he had experienced in the last couple of days. In his mind he thought, the boy is certainly talented in some ways, either that or lucky. He found his latest power in conflict with those ghost octopus, so that means that the heat of battle was on him when he summoned that phantom energy. I have to get the report from Inoichi to see how the training with Naruto's overshadowing ability is going. So the Hokage was discussing the new ghost blast that you developed during battle. I have to agree with his assessment that you should learn to master the control of chakra as training that could help with the control of that power. I was thinking about showing you guys such an activity in your next major lesson, especially for you Naruto. He told the boy as he continued to move across the village to find the secret location they needed to head to. It's because of you know who, nay? Naruto frowned at that as if he had swallowed something bitter that made him ill. The fox boy's amazing ability to rebound from personal pain became active as he started to smile and continued. Still, if it helps me get the title from the old man and makes people respect me, I'll do it even if it kills me. Quote, I do think that you should practice your ghost blast abilities, we're just going to have to find a target area for you that is away from people for now. That way if you lose control of the blast it won't hurt others. The place that we're heading to has such a training area for you, specially made to test experimental jutsu that might cause major damage. Among the many other topics of spectral research that they conduct there. The Ghost Hunter Headquarters, Area 52B. The gray-haired man said as they approached a building completely covered with heavy-duty brakes and metal. A huge sign hanging from the side of the building with the words Watanabe Works written in bright green, the same color of the ghost boy's ghost eyes. The one-eyed man went up to the door and hit a button that made a ringing noise. Minutes later the door opened up and a huge man in a bright blue outfit stood in the middle of the doorway. Welcome back to Watanabe Works, Kakashi. I see that you have brought a youngster with you. Is he the special student of yours? 'Cause most of us here are curious about just what this boy can do. The man said as he moved his hand out to shake Naruto's sensei. Though his large size that could have been muscle or fat with a black beard and hair. He also had little tiny eyes that seemed to be in a constant squint. His face was lightened up by the huge smile on his face. Naruto, this is Jiro Watanabe. He is the head of this facility and the leader of all of the research that the village has done on the topic of spirits. Jiro, this is Naruto. He was the one that the Hokage talked about having the Raichi bloodline limit. Naruto was recently attacked by a couple of spirit octopus, and the Hokage thought that it might be best if my student was equipped with some gear. He also needs a testing range to try out some of the more interesting aspects of his bloodline. The teacher made the introduction as the lead research took the young man's hand and shoot it with great excitement. Excellent. I always wanted to have my work be tested in the field more. Until now, we just had a few missions clearing out dead spirits from people's homes. Not too many specters of higher powers, but I have a feeling that Naruto here might change all of that. So come on in, I want to show you around and show you to the crew. Much later, Naruto had been around the building that made up Area 52B, or as it was being called, Watanabe Works. The building had to be one of the strongest built one as everything was made of metal or strong bricks, and the little glass that was used in the windows was made up of several panes. There were a couple of testing ranges that were filled with summoned spirits that were test subjects of the various ghost gear and ghost fighting jutsu. They also had labs that were filled with chemicals and machines that were not common to the village. The ghost boy was told that some of the materials for the devices came from vendors from the land of snow. They also showed him the area that they held the ghost they capture, which turned out to be a special mirror. The mirror was made of glass plated with sacred silver, with silver markings of trigrams that made it possible to store spirits in it. They could send in and summon out specific phantoms with jutsus that they created her. It turned out that one of the devices that they wanted him to have a smaller version of the larger mirror, one that could hold spirits and was made to be hard to break. In the same room was the attempt of the workers to build a portal into what they called the ghost zone. The only missing element that they needed was something called a reality drill, a device that could bore a hole through dimensions. Something that was over Naruto's head. After the mirror room, they returned to a conference room that was built so that workers could comment to supervisors. Jiro asked Naruto what he thought of the entire research facility. Naruto smiled and answered, "It's cool, like how you work to figure out how to fight bad ghosts and work with good ones. Plus it gives me a place where I can train both my jutsu and my Raichi powers without getting anyone else hurt. So I'm guessing that you want me to test out my powers for you, so you know what my powers can do. That would be the plan, since then we might be able to help you come up with ways for you to use your powers and even coming up with jutsu that could be used with those same powers. Many of the other clans with bloodlines tend to have special techniques that only they can use, so that might be something to think about. But now we're just getting you used to your powers," Jiro said as he agreed. "I can't wait to get started," said the ghost boy as he began his transformation. Elsewhere, in the village, Sakura was looking throughout the village for deals on different items that could help her in her hunt for Sasuke, like a killer new dress that could really show off her body. She had yet to find the right object to win over the source of her desires when she spotted Ino. They had been rivals for a while since they were both after Sasuke, but since she had heard that Ino was training with Naruto, she was curious about the results. "Ino, wait up," Sakura said as she rushed up the blonde in purple, trying to avoid anything that might make the pink-haired girl look like she was becoming weaker. The blue-eyed genin stopped as the female member of Team 7 ran up beside her. "What is it, forehead girl? Finally going to give up on Sasuke and give me the go-ahead to date him myself?" Ino said, so sure of herself in a way that the girl in the red dress envied. Not that the green-eyed girl would ever said that out loud. "Even if I decided to give up Sasuke, which I haven't, I would never let him date a pig like you," Sakura said as she tried to sound as sure of herself as her rival, before taking a more serious look and tone. She spoke again, "I was just wondering about what it was that you were doing during your training with Naruto. Kakashi-sensei mentioned that the two of you would be training with each other due to the special nature of Naruto's new abilities." Ino changed her face from the aggressive looks she took when her rival was around to something that was a little more introspective. Then she replied, "Well, it has been interesting. I never thought I would be jealous of Naruto, but with those new abilities of his, I am turning a little green. Flight, invisibility and perfect possession. Those would be so cool to be able to have. It does seems that I have the edge over him for now, since I have had more experience with my just you than he has with his powers. Sakura was listening closely and making notes about what it was that Ino was saying. Not only would this help her understand her teammate, but it could give her an advantage over her rival in love. Using her head to think of the right question to ask, she started to speak. So has Naruto done anything annoying in front of you or your father? 'Cause he has a tendency to do something stupid if you don't keep an eye on him. He did try to embarrass me by saying that I should stop going after Sasuke and Ino stopped and seemed to decide to hold something back before finishing that sentence. She caught herself in a pause and continued, and other than that he wasn't as annoying as he usually is. I think that he wanted to make a good impression on my father. Which seemed to work, since Daddy wants me to get to know Naruto outside of training so that we can work better during our lessons. That was causing Sakura to think more of the plans that she had in regard to Ino and Naruto. She knew that she could get information about Ino from Naruto during their meetings with the rest of the team, but this opened something that she hadn't thought of before. It took hard work to keep the evil grin off her face as she thought out her plans for her two classmates. If I can find a way to get Naruto together with Ino, not only would I get Sasuke by myself but I can get Naruto off my back as well. I wouldn't have to worry about him trying to ask me out on a date anymore, since he would be bugging Ino for those. Besides, the two of them have so much in common. Looks, attitudes and even powers. If Kakashi-sensei is right, then I wouldn't have to worry about any annoying boy trying to date me. The girl named after cherry blossoms cheered within, while miles away a boy in a green outfit and a bowl cut sneezed. Well, it might be a good idea for the two of you to get to know each other outside of training. It might help you develop your own style of ninjutsu that could really help the village in a crisis, making the both of you into heroes if you guys are needed. Besides, if you're nice to him, Naruto might try and take you for a fight. He promised to take Sasuke and myself up flying as soon as he thinks that he can do it. The pink-haired woman said to her friend, trying to bait a hook so that Ino might spend time with Naruto. You really think that he can do that? I mean that I have seen him fly, but I can't imagine a way for him to carry someone at the same time. Ino said as she took on a more excited look at the image of the idea. Well, along with the more obvious powers, Naruto also has a boost to abilities in his new form. Strength, agility, speed and endurance have all been raised to a superhuman level. At least that is what Kakashi-sensei told us. Sensei thinks that by training both his human and other form he could increase its strength, allowing for him to carry people while he flies. The question then is, when can he do it and who gets to go first? Answered Naruto's teammate as she tried to use Ino's competitive nature against her. From the determined look on her face, Sakura had won this battle. So what am I going to do with Ino now? Was the pink girl's thoughts, not knowing how to escape her rival just yet.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.